Part 19. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 181. Haha, it seems that there are unpleasant times among you humans. Mabas spoke sarcastically, his tone mixed with the joy of watching a show. For these snake people, there is probably nothing more joyful than being able to witness the quarrels within the human race with their own eyes. Medusa smiled lightly, but did not continue to look at Furikawa. Although Furikawa was a 6th grade alchemist, for her, Medusa was still a bit unsatisfied. Yun didn't look good. If it weren't for the interests of the sect, she wouldn't choose to hang out with an uncle all day long. As the saying goes, youth and vitality can bring joy. But Furikawa is different. Not only does he want to gain the supreme status in the Gyoma Empire, but he also wants to take Yun into his harem and make him his own. Although this situation is no longer a tacit fact for those at the top of the Gyoma Empire, for Yun as the rightful owner, she is not truly happy. Xianchen saw it in his eyes and remembered it in his heart. Although Yun came with Furikawa, even though there were many misunderstandings, he was able to understand Yun's personal troubles at this moment. In addition to being the leader of the Yunlin sect, Yun also has her own freedom of life. For a person without the freedom of life, he is like a walking corpse without a soul. Therefore, Yun not only has great opinions on Furikawa, but also wishes that Xianchen could teach him a lesson with his own hands. However, Yun could not do that, otherwise, it would completely affect the interests of the Yunlan sect, which would lead to being ostracized by the royal family of the Gyoma Empire. That's enough. Since we haven't obtained the strange fire, let's leave. Yun frowned slightly and her eyes fell on Xianchen. When she saw Xianchen looking at her, she wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything. As Mad Lion and Fengli left, he had no choice but to control the giant beast and rush back towards the Gama Empire. Seeing that the strong humans did not benefit, the snake people standing on the city wall cheered. After all, for a war, no loss is the real victory. Medusa licked her lips, and then came towards Xianchen Tukong. As Medusa's footsteps got closer and closer, Xianchen's aura exploded in vain. Feeling that the aura of this human boy was much higher than before, Medusa's beautiful eyes flickered slightly as if she had discovered a rare treasure. Boy, you are very powerful, are you willing to be my Taoist companion? You know, how many people want to be my Medusa's Taoist companion, but they are helpless. Medusa bit her lip lightly with a charming look. The guards were instantly fascinated by his appearance. Seeing this, Mabas immediately asked Medusa loudly, "Queen, why don't you let me be your Taoist companion? You know, I am the leader of the powerful Black Snake tribe. What's more, you and I are the same race. With a will the relationship between the human teenagers affect the Queen's future cultivation and development." Mabas' words and deeds were not considered reckless in the eyes of those snake people. After all, for those snake people, every word Mabas said was exactly what they wanted to express. Yume's face changed slightly, and she frowned. She did not expect that Medusa would make such a request to Xianchen at such a time. I'm afraid the only solution is that, in addition to Xianchen's good looks, the more important thing is probably Xianchen's cultivation. When thinking of an extremely terrifying skill practiced by Medusa, Yume's delicate face looked extremely nervous. Although she and Xianchen had not known each other for a long time, she could not just watch Xianchen fall into Medusa's trap based on their relationship as husband and wife. Queen, forgive Yume for speaking frankly, I think what Mabas said is not unreasonable. That kid is a human being. What should we do if some trouble that is difficult to solve occurs? Yume. Mabas looked at Yume suspiciously, probably not expecting that she, who had always had a bad relationship with him, would actually speak for him on such an occasion. With the beginning of Mabas and Yume, the snake men soldiers also knelt on one knee and lowered their heads, put their hands in front of them, and shouted to Medusa almost in unison, I hope the queen will give up this idea. Snakes, combining humans with humans. There will be no good results. Are you trying to force me to marry you? Do you think you can change my will with just a few words? Mabas, as the leader of a tribe, how dare you say such rebellious words on such an occasion? And you may shut up, too. Medusa still had authority. As soon as she finished speaking, the soldiers, Mabas and Yume bowed their heads immediately. However, it is worth mentioning that Mabas, who was unwilling to accept it, seemed to have made up his mind, but he suddenly raised his head, pointed at the imperial sister and shouted at Xianxiang, "You can become a Taoist companion with him if you want. The prerequisite is that you must fight me. If I lose, I give up voluntarily. But if you lose, you must abandon your cultivation. What do you think, boy? Do you dare to agree? If you don't agree, get out of here." Mabas's extremely arrogant tone made even Xian Chen, the strongest person present, have to admire him from the bottom of his heart. Where did he find such courage? "Oh? What do you think?" Medusa asked Xian Chen with interest. "After all, this may be the best way to completely make those soldiers give up their thoughts. Haha, I'm so talented, I'm willing to fight General Mabas." Boom. As soon as Xian Chen finished speaking, the sword under his feet immediately shone with endless light. This extremely dazzling light made the soldiers who looked up at Xian Chen cover their faces in an instant. "Haha, today I will let you see the power of me." Mabas raised his hand in a gesture of invitation, and then Xian Chen slowly floated past Medusa with his sword. Although Xian Chen is not old, his height is no shorter than Mabas. In addition, Xian Chen has often collided with people in recent years, so naturally his momentum will be higher than that of Mabas, not lower. Looking at the young man's calm appearance, Mabas roared angrily, and the terrifying fighting energy turned into concussive ripples, quickly attacking Xian Chen. Under the attack of this fighting spirit energy, Xian Chen behaved extremely calmly. He raised his hand to create a barrier, blocking the ripples of fighting spirit energy from outside. Mabas was not willing to be resisted by Xian Chen like this, and was ready to fight with him at close range. Just as the energy wings behind Mabas were waving, Xian Chen's eyes darkened. Immediately afterwards, the space energy around Mabas immediately closed in on Mabas at an extremely fast speed. Mabas could hardly breathe. How could he have imagined that Xian Chen would use the method Medusa used to suppress the mad lion? Under this situation of space suppression, Mabas' eyes, mouth, and nose were bleeding, and he could only hear his bones cracking loudly. It was obvious that he was being compressed by the surrounding space, and his bones were broken due to the pressure. Female, queen. Mabas looked at Medusa with some despair. He hoped Medusa could rescue him at this time, but he was extremely clear that it was he who proposed the challenge. If Chen doesn't choose to let go, then even Medusa won't be able to interfere casually. Because this is the greatest respect for a snake warrior. Mabas. Yume frowned. She didn't expect that Xian Chen's attack would be a fatal blow. Although she also wanted to stop Xian Chen's behavior, when she noticed Medusa's cold face, she did not dare to say a word to save Mabas. Just when Mabas was about to desperately prepare to face death, the oppressive spatial oppression finally disappeared completely as Xian Chen let go. This feeling of coming back from the dead brought an extremely haggard smile to Mabas' face. It fell rapidly from mid-air to the ground, and the soldiers standing on the ground wanted to catch it one after another. However, they underestimated the damage caused by such a high-altitude fall. Mabas' body is already huge, so as for his weight, he has lost his mind and naturally cannot easily suppress his true body weight. Boom. As expected. As Mabas hit the ground hard, the soldiers who wanted to pick him up were also instantly smashed to death by this extremely terrifying bombardment. Boy, you are very good, but I am about to use strange fire to complete the final evolution. Are you willing to protect me as the Queen's knight? Medusa smiled faintly, and then turned into a mist and disappeared in everyone's eyes. Sight. The eyes of those people became extremely frightened. After all, this situation was the last thing they expected, and when you may notice the situation, her expression changed drastically. He said with a frightened look, I didn't expect that the Queen would actually start to use strange fire to evolve. But using energy bodies to resist those human races would be too risky. You may squeezed her sweat for Medusa. Fortunately, Xian Chen existed. Otherwise, just relying on Yunyun's strength and the cooperation of other fighting kings, it would really be possible today. Severely inflict heavy damage on their Snake Men clan. Just as Yu Mei finished speaking, she noticed a graceful figure flying towards Xian Chen from a certain direction in the city. When the man stood steadily in front of Xian Chen's eyes inadvertently took another look at the other person's delicate body. Who are you? Captain of the Medusa Snake Guard, Hua Shi'er. The beautiful woman who calls herself Hua Shi'er also has a charming face. If she hadn't met Medusa beforehand, I'm afraid she wouldn't have it just because of her unique temperament. It is really enough to make those who have never seen Medusa feel that it is fake. Is something wrong? Xian Chen asked with a frown. Although he didn't know Hua Snake in front of him, he didn't feel any danger from her for the person in front of him. The Queen asked me to come over and lead the way for you, please, young master. Hua Shi'er smiled faintly, as if she was also full of curiosity about Xian Chen. A young Do Huang, that is a very shocking fact for the entire snake race. Hua Shi'er. Where is the Queen? Can you let me go too? Yu Mei frowned and asked Hua Shi'er, but Hua Shi'er's mouth raised a nice arc and said lightly to her, sorry, Master Yu Mei, the Queen did not ask you to accompany them, and the Queen also said that those humans are cunning, so be sure to take precautions to avoid unnecessary disputes. As soon as Hua Shi'er finished speaking, he led the way and flew towards the east of the city. Xian Chen, on the other hand, flew with his sword and followed her silently. After flying for an unknown amount of time, a huge temple finally slowly appeared in sight. As they entered the palace, not long after, the two came to a small clear lake. In the center of the lake, there is a small island. The surrounding water was calm, as if there was no path leading into it. Sir, the Queen asked you to stay here for protection. Hua Shi'er smiled softly, and then, with Xian Chen looking suspicious, he stepped out. Looking at his back that was getting away, Xian Chen found a big stone. Choose to sit down. Although he didn't know what was going on under the water, driven by curiosity, Xian Chen still chose to go to the small island to find out. Just when Xian Chen summoned the sword and prepared to fly with it, he suddenly noticed that there was some kind of energy restriction on the calm lake. If it were someone else, maybe after seeing this energy restriction, he could only sneak into the bottom of the lake and swim to the other side. But for Xian Chen, this energy restriction is really not enough in his eyes. Look! Boom! The sword body erupted with an extremely terrifying shock, and almost instantly, the energy restriction was broken, opening a path for Xian Chen to move forward. Quan Chen looked indifferent as Xian Chen walked with his sword, but just when he was about to reach the space island, a giant snake with green scales all over its body and a triangular head suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the lake. Just when the giant snake opened its mouth and was about to swallow the intruder into its belly, it suddenly realized that the young man in front of it was actually better than its queen. Even stronger. Under the terrifying shock of the sword, the giant snake was immediately shocked and hit the wall hard. Looking at the giant snake falling into the lake, Xian Chen's eyes were filled with contempt. Naturally, Xian Chen doesn't want to miss out on things like evolution. After successfully setting foot on the island, Xian Chen began to look for Medusa's aura, and finally entered a bamboo forest and discovered Medusa's figure. At this moment, Medusa's beautiful eyes were staring closely at the cyan flames in the small pool. Looking at the cyan flames, she looked nervous, obviously not wanting to make any mistakes. Xian Chen quietly watched in the bamboo forest, looking at the other party's graceful body, releasing the enchanting temptation, but he couldn't help but want to get closer. However, at this moment, Medusa's pair of narrow lavender eyes revealed her vigilance towards Xian Chen. "Don't be nervous, I'm not a bad person." Xian Chen smiled lightly, inserted the sword into the ground at will, then silently crossed his legs and closed his eyes. Medusa noticed this scene, and although she was confused, she had no choice but to acquiesce that the other party was here to watch. After all, Xian Chen's strength is that of a fighting emperor. If a fight really breaks out at this time, Medusa, even if she is the queen of the desert, can only be defeated at this time. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 182. Queen Medusa bit her red lips with her teeth and looked at Xian Chen with some hesitation. But after noticing that Xian Chen closed his eyes and took a deep breath, she immediately stretched out her slender jade hands and slowly unbuttoned the brocade robe. Then, a perfect jade body like a masterpiece from heaven was exposed into his eyes. Looking at the other party's perfect white jade body, Xian Chen only felt a little dry. The slender willow waist seems to be not enough to be grasped. However, despite being slightly thin, there is a sense of flexibility, and the flat and delicate lower abdomen does not have a trace of excess fat. It seems that this is the only last resort. Medusa bit her lip, then closed her hands slightly, and her hands continued to change with strange handprints, and as her handprints changed, the energy fluctuations in this space suddenly became more and more intense. Although it is unclear how Medusa wants to evolve, since she has agreed to protect the formation, Xian Chen will naturally not choose to leave. As Medusa formed a formation, a giant purple snake that was more than 10 feet tall stood suspended behind Queen Medusa, howling in the wind. The giant purple snake was glaring at Xian Chen with an angry expression, as if as soon as Xian Chen had other thoughts, it would rush out and bite the human boy to death. However, while the two sides looked at each other, Medusa's seal was finally completed. Under Xian Chen's gaze, Medusa merged with the giant purple snake. When Xian Chen looked confused, the giant purple snake suddenly soared down toward the green flames in the center of the lotus platform. Looking at the giant purple snake that was like a moth flying into a flame, Xian Chen's brows were tightly knitted together. Although he didn't know why the giant purple snake rushed towards the green flames, in his heart, Xian Chen was full of admiration for the giant purple snake. Xian Chen, who was watching silently, just waited quietly for Medusa to evolve successfully. However, the purple flame was a strange fire after all, and could not be compared with ordinary flames. Therefore, naturally, the roar of the purple giant snake immediately came from the flame. The purple flame seemed to feel something, and began to resist fiercely. Is this the power of King Lian's earth core fire? Seeing that the extremely violent Qinglian earth core fire was able to burn Medusa until she let out an extremely miserable scream, Xian Chen wanted to step forward and help her, but endured it. As the violent Qinglian earth core fire continued to burn the purple snake, Suankan's eyebrows were almost squeezed together. Although he was not familiar with Medusa, Medusa's appearance was always lingering in her mind. If she just watched such a beauty fall, with Suankan's character, there is absolutely no way he can do it. Taking a deep breath and seeing the scales on the purple giant snake being burned and falling away by King Lian's inner fire, Xian Chen was ready to take action and give Medusa a blessing. Under the guidance of the system, he purchased a colorful lotus flower from the system store, and then threw it towards the giant purple snake that was churning in the inner fire of Qing Lian. As the seven-color lotus shines brightly, the fire intensity of the green lotus earth core fire decreases a lot in an instant. With the help of the seven-color lotus, the purple snake felt a little better. Boom! I don't know what happened, but I saw a group of extremely violent colorful light beams suddenly rising up here, instantly making the snake men waiting silently in the city tremble. Did the queen evolve successfully, Maba said with a shocked face, and Yume beside him also had a very wonderful expression. After all, no one can tell whether this kind of thing will be a success or a failure. Boom boom boom. The seven-color light continued to grow stronger, and some snake men with low strength began to cover their heads and scream. Obviously he was extremely frightened by this sudden spectacle. However, even those people in Furikawa who had left not long ago had extremely nervous brows at this moment. Furikawa, who was originally in an extremely depressed mood, turned around hurriedly after feeling something. When he saw such a strange scene happening over the giant city where Medusa was located, he couldn't help but clench his hands. The Mad Lion looked at the sky that seemed to be dyed into 7 colors. He frowned and hurriedly asked Furikawa, "Master Furikawa, is Medusa going to evolve? How is this possible? Didn't you say with Medusa's physique, will she definitely be burned to ashes by the Qinglian Earth Core fire?" Furikawa's face turned dark. At this moment, he felt that Mad Lion's words were a challenge to his authority. He took a deep breath, frowned at Yun Yun beside him and said, "If Medusa is allowed to evolve successfully, it will be a disaster for our Garma Empire. You will be responsible for all this." Furahi, is it too early to draw conclusions now? Although what you said is not unreasonable, does it seem that you are too narrow-minded if you blame all these things on me alone? Yun Yun retorted, obviously she didn't want to give Furikawa any more face. If it weren't for someone like Furikawa pestering her, she wouldn't have had the courage to sit on the so-called sect leader's position. "Master Furikawa, Master Yun Yun, now is not the time to rebel. Let's first think about whether Medusa will pose a threat to us if it successfully evolves." Feng Li exhaled a hot breath. Although his cultivation level was he only has the strength of Do Wang, but if we talk about age, then he definitely has full say. So naturally, as he opened his mouth, even though the relationship between Furikawa and Yun Yun was disturbed by the fact that Medusa was about to evolve successfully, they still gave each other enough face and did not continue to argue. "I won't reply to this matter, so I'll take my leave." Yun Yun breathed out a breath, then left the back of the giant beast and quickly left in the direction of the Jiama Empire. The other 3 fighting kings who were left on the back of the giant beast stood there in utter embarrassment and were at a loss. Furikawa exhaled a breath of turbid air and said awkwardly to Feng Li and Kuangxi, "Actually, Senior Feng is right. This is not the time for rebellion. Since Medusa is about to evolve successfully, why don't we leave first and wait? I'll make a decision in the future. What do you two think?" "Haha, Master Furikawa said so. I have no objection. I just don't know what Mad Lion said." Feng Li looked at Mad Lion tacitly, as if he wanted to get confirmation from him. After all, given Windrunner's power in the Jiama Empire, it was naturally impossible for him to agree so readily. "Haha, I have no objection, it's just that Medusa has evolved successfully. We still have to go back and tell the royal family as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be bad if Medusa catches us off guard." The Mad Lion coughed dryly. Reply to everyone. Several people looked at each other, and they all saw Xiaojuju in each other's hearts, so they had no choice but to tacitly rush back towards the Jiama Empire. As for Xian Chen, who had been watching Medusa's painstaking evolution, he was also very nervous at the moment. Although he did throw the 7-color lotus that was conducive to Medusa's successful evolution into the Qinglian Earth Heart Fire, the real what you have to rely on is Medusa herself. Therefore, whether Medusa can truly evolve successfully depends on Medusa herself. Otherwise, even with powerful assistance, if Medusa fails to refine the 7-color lotus, she will still only be able to evolve. Can fail. You must successfully evolve. Xian Chen exhaled a breath of turbidity, silently waiting for Medusa to successfully evolve. Boom! Thunder suddenly sounded in the sky, and then those thunders hit the head of the purple snake steadily with a very fast and accurate speed. The bombardment again and again finally knocked the crazy purple snake to the ground. This. Xianchen frowned. He did not expect that a majestic fighting emperor would fall here. It's a pity, I haven't had time to develop a relationship with you, you just left like this. Looking at the purple giant snake lying motionless on the ground, Xianchen had no choice but to prepare to take away the Qinglian earth core fire that had returned to calm. Just when Xianchen came to Qinglian's inner fire and was about to reach out to touch Qinglian's inner fire, his brows suddenly frowned. He turned around in a hurry, probably never dreaming that this giant purple snake that was supposed to die would suddenly open its eyes. In this threatening look, Xianchen was about to touch Yi Huo's right hand, but he froze on the spot in embarrassment. Looking back at the giant purple snake, Xianchen smiled awkwardly at him, and then said nonchalantly, "I thought you were dead." Roar. However, as soon as Xianchen finished speaking, Medusa did not suddenly fight back, but instead let out a sharp roar toward the sky in an extremely violent manner. Just when Xianchen looked puzzled, the giant snake that was burned until it was extremely dark suddenly underwent earth-shaking changes. Seeing that the giant snake's body began to expand rapidly, as if something was about to burst out of its belly, Xianchen, who frowned, hurriedly stepped aside. Bang! Just when Xianchen got out of the way, the giant snake suddenly exploded into powder and splashed around. As for the scales on the giant snake, it seemed like it had turned into a sharp dagger at the moment, shooting towards the surrounding bamboo forest. Constantly stabbing. Looking at the bamboo forest that kept falling to the ground and the terrifying aura that could change the sky, it was only now that Xianchen realized that Medusa did not disappear because of the power of Qinglian's earth core fire, but because of the power of Qinglian's earth core fire. The power of the thunder, and the disaster of that day, the perfect evolution was successful. The snake people in the city who were worried about Medusa had extremely excited tears on their faces after feeling this extremely familiar aura. The moment this vast aura erupted, even Furukawa and the others who were just about to leave had extremely frightened expressions on their faces. As for the Snake City, there was a cheer that could be said to resound through the sky at this moment. Yume hugged Mabaz excitedly. Under this sudden hug, Mabaz looked extremely embarrassed. But even so, Mabaz is still full of helplessness towards Yume. Mabaz. The queen has evolved successfully. We, the snake people, finally have a chance to become famous throughout the Dochi continent. Yume's heart was filled with excitement, but when she reacted, she hurriedly pushed her away. Yume looked shy and bit her lips, but it made Mabaz's heart beat fast. Mabaz looked at the shy Yume and felt that his throat was dry. He calmed down and said awkwardly to Yume, "Yume, actually you are very beautiful, if possible, I hope you can marry me, after all, if that happens, it will be a good thing for you and our tribe." "That's enough, Mabaz. I don't want to hear such words again. We are destined to be impossible, you know. And, I hope you can remember, there is already someone in my heart. Let what happened just now become let the wind disappear." Yume trembled slightly, she was speaking from her heart. Although Mabaz's personality is extremely inconsistent with hers, after all, they are both snake people. If it weren't for Xianchen's sudden intrusion, maybe she would really consider Mabaz's suggestion. Mabaz trembled when he heard Yume's words, and hurriedly walked to Yume. He looked shocked, as if he had guessed something, and hurriedly asked Yume for confirmation, "Is it the boy named Xianchen who is responsible for this? What's so good about him?" Mabaz asked cautiously, obviously also a little wary of Suanken's strength. If Hua Shi'er hadn't personally come to inform Xianchen to escort Medusa, I'm afraid he would still have the intention of fighting. However, after seeing Xianchen's strength, Mabaz, who has always been arrogant and unreasonable, had to be cautious. Careful. Yume's expression was gloomy, looking at Mabaz who kept asking questions. He hesitated for a moment before replying calmly, "Although he has never said that he loves me, but I, Yume, including my heart and soul, have already given it to him, Mo basey base, we are no longer in the same world. If you want to chase me, please practice hard and defeat him. Yume. Mabaz was heartbroken. He never thought in his wildest dreams that Yume, who often bickered, would willingly dedicate himself to a human boy. If this kind of thing spreads, I am afraid it will be famous throughout the desert, and even be a joke in several empires around the desert. Why are you doing this? Mabaz's face returned to coldness, and the love in his eyes when he looked at Yume was gone. Seeing the depressed Mabaz, Yume took a deep breath and said without hesitation, "No reason, if there is one reason, it is love." Love a human boy. Mabaz's face was slightly stunned, but in an instant, he blasted out fighting energy, which instantly destroyed a city wall to pieces. Seeing Mabaz's reckless behavior, Yume seemed not to take it to heart. He was indifferent throughout the whole process and ignored Mabaz's anger, but his eyes were still fixed on the 7-colored clouds in the sky. As for the evolved Medusa, she is completely missing at this moment. Just when Xianchen was looking at the mist with a puzzled look, he suddenly realized that he felt an extremely dangerous feeling, sprinting towards him at a very fast speed. Hiss. Hearing this sound, Xianchen immediately burst out with Duhuang pressure. The extremely terrifying oppression raised this entire place to the ground in an instant. Even the calm lake surface was shaken and several water jets rushed out. As this scene happened, the object that was about to attack Xianchen suddenly stopped. Looking at the black shadow in the mist, Xianchen looked puzzled and couldn't help but stretch out his hand in the direction of the black shadow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 183. Bang, just when Xianchen stretched out his finger, the thing fixed in the mist suddenly emitted colorful light. At the moment when the colorful light appeared, the outstretched palm suddenly grasped something smooth. Squeak, in the sudden palm, the thing began to struggle violently, obviously trying to escape from Xianchen's hands. Huh, Xianchen raised his eyebrows, and then the fighting energy in his body exploded. As the wind-type fighting energy surged, the dense mist began to gradually disappear. As the fog disappeared, a slender snake emitting colorful light and shadow appeared in Suanken's field of vision. Although this little snake is small, the tiny scales on its body are 7 different colors. Its lavender snake eyes were exuding a strange color at the moment. Although its body is extremely small, its whole body exudes a unique elegance and dignity. Are you Medusa? Xianchen looked at the colorful little snake he was holding tightly, his eyes full of complexity. The colorful little snake, as if it understood Xianchen's words, swung its tiny snake tail slightly. Seeing this colorful little snake staring at him with its big lavender eyes, Xianchen's face showed a trace of inexplicable humor. He originally thought that Medusa would become more and more beautiful after evolving through the tribulation, but unexpectedly, it evolved into a small snake. Squeak, Medusa, who had successfully evolved, looked directly at Xianchen with her crystal-clear eyes, as if she wanted to get something from Xianchen. Do you know what it wants? Looking at the little snake, Xianchen asked the system dumbfounded. The system was silent for a moment and replied coldly, the original body of Medusa is the 6th level magical beast Purple Flame Snake. According to data research, the Purple Flame Snake has the blood of an ancient alien beast flowing in its body. If there is enough opportunity, such purple flame snakes are able to activate the thin bloodline in their bodies and evolve into their ancient ancestors. Although this is unlikely, but according to the situation, it seems that Medusa should have successfully turned her bloodline into an ancestor, thus evolving into the legendary spiritual snake, the colorful sky-swallowing python. Although it has successfully evolved into a colorful sky-swallowing python, even so, without the assistance of dependent resources, I am afraid it will not be able to successfully advance and grow. The reason why it is so close to you must be to gain enough resources from you to grow again. Get resources from me and complete further growth. After hearing the system's reply, Xianchen couldn't help but laugh or cry. After all, Medusa wanted to obtain resources from him. Although he was mentally prepared, he did not expect that the system would be so direct. Then are there any reliable resources to raise it? After all, if it can continue to regain its human body, it will be a sure profit for me, right? Xianchen smiled and reached out to touch the colorful little snake. His head looked gentle. The colorful little snake also nuzzled in Suanken's palm very obediently, and obviously had a very good trust in Xianchen. The system silently watched this scene. After a slight silence, it said calmly, "The seven-colored sky-swallowing python is a fire-attributed beast. According to its attributes, it may be raised with the accompanying amethyst source. But if you feed him with the accompanying amethyst source, your body will also change." "My body will also change." Xianchen was stunned for a moment, with a complex expression on his face. He didn't expect that he would have to pay a price for raising a strange beast like the colorful sky-swallowing python. "What's the price? Are you sure the source of the accompanying amethyst is reliable?" Xianchen exhaled a breath. He was still very happy to cultivate a strange beast like the colorful sky-swallowing python. After all, the Medusa in front of him was still lingering in Xianchen's mind. "It won't go away. The price is that your age will increase and your appearance will also change." The price of the system turned out to be life as compensation. After hearing this, Xianchen was extremely nervous. Now he is just an 18-year-old teenager. If he really sacrifices his own life to cultivate Medusa, then Xianchen really needs to make a choice between gain and loss. "I do." Xianchen breathed out a breath, but the system fell silent. After the system was silent for a moment, the screen turned, and a selection box appeared in front of him. This selection box has the 4 words "Confirm Upgrade," and below the 4 words "Confirm Upgrade," there are the 2 words "Confirm" and "Deny." As the selection box appeared, Xianchen looked at Medusa, who was looking at him with her little head tilted, exhaled a breath, and then reached out to touch the OK button of the selection box. I saw the OK button pressed, and then a golden light burst out from Xianchen's body. The colorful little snake blinked its big eyes and looked at Xianchen curiously and confused. Just when the colorful little snake looked confused, as the golden light faded, a young man with a tall body and a vicissitudes of life came into view of the colorful little snake. Seeing that the handsome young man who was originally envious turned into a young man with a vicissitude of appearance and silver hair, the colorful little snake was so frightened that he kept dodging in Suanken's palm, obviously trying to escape from Suanken's palm. "Call." Xianchen let out a breath and noticed that all his clothes had become smaller. He then gently placed the colorful snake on the ground, then bought a new set of black clothes from the system store and put them on. Squeak. The colorful little snake looked at Xianchen curiously, but his eyes were full of fear and curiosity. But Xianchen ignored its gaze, silently opened the upgraded system panel, looked at the contents, and frowned. Host, Xianchen. Cultivation, Dozan. Region, Tagore Desert. Territory, Zhongzhou Suanfu. Dozan, Xianchen frowned. After the introduction of the system, he finally understood that Dozan's strength was actually able to control the power of space. At this level, he could really reach the level where he could kill people with his eyes. "This is the source of associated amethyst," the system replied to Xianchen, and then several small jade bottles filled with purple liquid floated in front of Xianchen. Look at the small jade bottle that appeared. The colorful little snake's eyes revealed a trace of greed. Xianchen held one of the bottles, handed it to the colorful little snake, and said softly, "Little guy, this is for you." Xianchen spoke softly, and the colorful little snake nodded with satisfaction, then put its tiny snake head into the jade bottle and licked it gently with the snake letter. Seeing this scene, Xianchen was extremely pleased, so his eyes fell on the green flame floating in the air. Looking at the so-called Qinglian earth heart fire, Xian Chen absorbed it into his palm without mercy. Under the curious look on the colorful little snake's face, Xian Chen then said lightly, without this Qinglian earth heart fire, there would be no you. Now that I have stepped into Tuzun, then this Qinglian earth heart fire, for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's of no use. Xian Chen exhaled turbid air, and then under the gaze of the colorful little snake, he directly sealed the Qinglian earth core fire here. Looking at the purple light barrier surrounding him, Xian Chen said softly to the colorful snake, I'm ready to leave here. Do you want to leave with me? The colorful little snake looked at Xian Chen in confusion, but when it noticed that Xian Chen was actually taking steps to leave, it hurriedly scurried and landed firmly on Xian Chen's shoulder. The colorful little snake crawling on Suanken's shoulder noticed that Xian Chen was looking at him, and swam towards Suanken's shoulder as if he was shy. After finishing all this, Xian Chen immediately stepped towards the air, step by step. With the help of this wingless step, he successfully stepped on it, and soon attracted the attention of many snake people. The Hua snake who had been guarding the door was looking at Xian Chen with fear. This feeling of not being angry and being proud made Hua Xir very afraid. With her brows furrowed, she tentatively asked Xian Chen, Who is your excellency? I am Xian Chen said lightly. Xian Chen, Hua Xir looked confused, obviously confused by Xian Chen's answer. Where is the queen? Why can't she be seen? Hua Xir continued to ask, obviously still caring about Medusa. Xian Chen was silent for a moment and then said calmly, she is gone, but don't worry, she will come back when she wants to. Then does the queen have a definite time? Can you tell me? Hua Xir continued to ask, obviously knowing the whereabouts of Medusa. I don't know. Xian Chen exhaled a breath, and then rushed towards the direction of Shimo City under Hua Xir's confused gaze. Boom! The thunder in the sky continued to explode, and the other fighting kings of the snake tribe who rushed over were so frightened that they trembled when they saw the strange phenomenon in the sky. What's going on? Why are there colorful lights on the queen's side? Could it be that the queen has successfully evolved? I don't know. If that's really the case, maybe it's not a good thing for us. Haha, it seems those empires have come to an end. These snake clan fighting kings who rushed over had ruthless expressions on their faces, but they all had their own xiaojiju hidden in their hearts. Boom! An extremely harsh explosion sound suddenly exploded from Medusa's palace. Along with the violent storm, the snake people who were waiting silently on the city wall were silently waiting for their queen's return in the storm. Is this the queen's success in overcoming the tribulation? Mobs roared excitedly, but at this moment, a figure suddenly jumped out from the roof of the palace. Looking at the figure standing proudly in the air, Mobs's expression changed drastically. Who is this person? Where did he come from? Mobs looked at the figure in shock. Although the figure did not take action, the aura revealed by him was extremely terrifying. Yume glanced at Mobs, and then at the figures in the sky. She was silent for a moment, and said doubtfully, I wonder if you remember that there is a kind of strong man, who can step on the void. Step into the void? Mobs looked at Yume in fear, his tiger body trembled, and he said in a vigilant voice, how is this possible? There cannot be such a strong person in the surrounding empire. Although it is true, but don't forget, the queen once told us about a place called Zhongzhou. Zhongzhou. That is the realm where the strong are like clouds. A place that all empires fear the most. How is this possible? According to the rules of Zhongzhou, people from their side can't come to us casually. Besides, if they are really people from Zhongzhou, we snake people don't seem to have any contact with them, right? Why? What about coming to us suddenly? Yume frowned, what she said was not unreasonable, and Mobs didn't think so. After taking a deep breath, the two of them could only watch the super strong man in the sky leave. After all, that person is really not someone they can easily offend. I don't know how long it took, but when the leaders of the snake tribe who came to support arrived, they were shocked to the point of numbness by the mess they saw. The palace that was supposed to be extremely luxurious was actually destroyed to pieces, and the most important thing was that their queen disappeared without a trace. The queen's aura has disappeared. A white-haired snake-human old man said with a worried look on his face. A blue-haired fighting king next to him frowned and said, "Is it because you are too tired after evolving successfully?" "No. Shouldn't, Uma, didn't you say that people from the human race are coming? Why didn't you see them?" The white-haired old man frowned and asked Uma, who was standing next to Mabas, as if he wanted to learn from Uma's mouth get some reliable news. "Elder, those people did come, but something happened on the way, so they all left again. If the elder doesn't believe it, you can ask Mabas." "Well, elder, she is right. As for why those people left, maybe it was because of a young boy from the human race fighting against the emperor. However, you may be most concerned about what happened just now." Maba's old face embarrassing, since seeing the other party's pure smile, Mabas's heart has almost been warmed by Yume. So at this moment, even looking at Yume's expression, I didn't dare to show the slightest disdain from before. The elder's face was dark. He looked at the heavy rain in the sky, and said lightly, "Is this the powerful person you were talking about just now?" "Did you meet the elder?" Yume asked with surprise. The elder's face was terrifyingly dark, and he took a deep breath before replying, "We encountered each other. We used the 5 snake poison break seals. We wanted to suppress the other party, but it didn't work. The other party just waved his hand casually, and almost killed me. Wait for the killing. But during that fight, I vaguely sensed the queen's aura from that powerful body." The old man took a deep breath and told what happened before. He is still extremely afraid to this day. Will something happen to the queen? You may heard that they all used the 5 snake poison seals but failed to suppress that person, so she immediately asked, for fear that Medusa would die in front of that person who was most likely a dozone. In the hands of the strong. I don't know. But it's not impossible that this won't happen. It's best not to happen, otherwise our snake people will be completely doomed. The elder replied worriedly. After all, this kind of thing is closely related to the life and death of their entire clan. Everyone was silent. It is conceivable that the existence of Medusa is their hope of living. As for Xian Chen, who successfully stepped into Tuzun due to the upgrade of the system, he was on the way to Shimo City. Along the way, he occasionally saw some battles between snake men and soldiers, but he always watched with indifference. Ever since he stepped into Tuzun, he felt as if he had changed into a different person, no longer as childish as before, and no longer as arrogant as before. The only thing I have is the heart to keep moving forward. On the way back to Shimo City, although Xian Chen lost his wings, he did not choose to use the sword. Instead, he chose to step on the stars and rush towards the location of Shimo City. Although he was walking in the air, when Xian Chen's feet stepped on the starry sky, the seemingly empty sky was like stepping on water. Every step he took could cause ripples. Squeak. As for the colorful little snake, it was coiled on Xian Chen's head like a golden cage. Following Xian Chen's footsteps, not long after, a huge city located in the desert finally came into view. Next to the gate of the big city, there was a flag with the word Xian written on it. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 184. Stone Desert City. The wind and sun are beautiful, but the only drawback is that the sun is extremely poisonous. This suffocating dryness made the pedestrians sweat profusely. Occasionally, a voluptuous woman in scantily clad clothing would pass by, but this was the only way to relieve the heat in the scorching heat. Outside Shimo City, the city lord's servants who were responsible for collecting the city's admission fee were all putting on clothes with the Xian character logo at this moment. Just at the same mysterious moment, a figure with its feet on the stars suddenly appeared in the sky. This figure is not angry and powerful, and his whole body reveals the power of a king. Am I so hot that I'm hallucinating? How could there be people who can fly without wings? I feel like I'm hallucinating too. Not to mention Queen Medusa, the strongest person in Tagore Desert. Even the surrounding empires can't have such a strong person. Seeing the young man walking through the air, these melon-eating crowds started talking in an incomprehensible way. Xian Chen looked down, spinning as if stepping on steps, approaching the city step by step. Not long after, Xian Chen stepped onto the ground and walked straight towards the city without caring about the eyes of those around him. One of the soldiers was about to reach out to stop him, but was hurriedly held back by the middle-aged man beside him. Witnessing the young man walking into Shimo City, the middle-aged man had a look of hatred on his face and yelled, "Stupid boy! How can we easily stop such a strong man who can walk in the air? Do you know, knowing what you just did, it would be easy for people in our city to accompany you to death? Uncle Shan, isn't our leader of the Xian League the fighting emperor? We're afraid of what he will do." The young man retorted unwillingly, obviously dissatisfied with the middle-aged scolding. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and then explained, "Stupid guy, if it weren't for your father who saved me back then, I wouldn't have dragged you into the Xian League. I heard that, in the Dochi continent, there are certain types of people who don't need to rely on wings to fly, and those people are so powerful that they can easily destroy a powerful empire with just a move of their hands." What? This young man only has 3 stars as a fighter. Although in Stone Desert City, his strength may be pretty good, but if you look at the empire, it is extremely small. Although he could only listen to the middle-aged words silently, he was frightened by the meaning. Walking on the street, looking at strange pedestrians, Xian Chen's expression was extremely dull. Since Xian Chen had a colorful snake coiled on his head, he attracted enough attention. It's so amazing, there is a colorful little snake on his head. Hey, do you think he is from the snake tribe? Don't make such a joke. No matter how arrogant the snake people are, they are not so arrogant that they can just step into the realm of the human race, right? Well, since this place was changed to the Xian League, it has attracted many independent people to join. What's more, I heard that the leader of the Xian League seems to be a Do Huang fighting emperor. That is comparable to the level of the top 10 powerful men in the Jiaji Empire. For these people, they may not have heard of the Yunlin sect, but they have been exposed to the top 10 powerful men in the Jiaji Empire since childhood. Arriving at the city lord's mansion, Xian Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the shops that were constantly transporting resources to the city lord's mansion. And the person responsible for guiding him turned out to be a guy with the strength of a great fighting master, which surprised Xian Chen. I remember that when he left Shimo City, even Moxin only relied on his own help to reach the level of the Great Do Master. But now that the Great Do Master is being greeted at the door, it is really a very new thing. Therefore, it is not difficult to analyze from this situation that Moxin, the Suanmen's signature brand, can be said to have developed to the extreme. What are you doing? What are you doing? While Xian Chen was staring at the Great Do Master, the young man standing next to the Great Do Master immediately questioned him. The Great Fighting Master noticed Xian Chen and felt a little confused when he looked at the unfamiliar face of the other party. However, when he vaguely felt the other party's calm and confident aura, he quickly came to Xian Chen. He cupped his fists towards Xian Chen and asked, "I wonder if you are starting to join the Xian Alliance? If so, I can help you handle it." "Haha, I came to you, Lord Moxin, and said that Xian Chen is here." "Xian Chen? Xian Chen?" The middle-aged man was stunned at first, but when he reacted, his face was full of surprise. He was not doubting whether the person in front of him was the leader of the Duhuang alliance that Moxin mentioned. But Guang learned from Moxin that their alliance leader should be just a young man, but judging from the appearance of the young man in front of him, it didn't match Moxin's portrait hanging in the hall at all. What's more, although the young man in front of him has extraordinary momentum, the colorful snake coiled above his head only makes people feel dumbfounded. Seeing the middle-aged man in a daze, the young man came over impatiently and mocked Xian Chen with contempt. Haha, anyone really dares to impersonate these days, although I have to admit that your momentum is indeed yes, but if you want to see our city lord directly, it is not as easy as imagined. Although the young man was not polite enough, what he said had its own truth. Xian Chen looked at the young man and saw that the opponent's strength turned out to be Dou Zhekixing. Then he smiled at him and said, I just want to see your city lord. If you can, please go in and report. You. Why should I? Zhao Fan, go in and tell the city lord that he is back. The middle-aged man frowned warily, not because he doubted the young man in front of him, but because he did not dare to make a decision until he was sure. Dad, Zhao Fan couldn't believe his ears, but he didn't expect that his father, whom he had always respected, suddenly raised his hand and slapped him hard on the face. This slap was so hard to prevent that even if Zhao Fan was dissatisfied, he would have to rush to the city lord's palace to report it to Moxin. In the hall of the city lord's palace, Moxin was receiving the leader of a certain support group who had newly joined the Xianmeng, but at this moment, Zhao Fan, who was in a hurry, barged in at this critical moment. City lord. He's back. Zhao Fan didn't say who was back, but just such a sentence made Moxin stand up from his chair in shock. Moxin, who looked confused, realized what he was doing, and then he hurriedly frowned at Zhao Fan and asked, He? Who is he you are talking about? He said his name was Xian Chen. I didn't believe it at first, but after my father slapped me, I believed it, Zhao Fan explained seriously, not forgetting to show his slapped cheek to Mo New View. Moxin took a deep breath and apologized to the commander of the army who was sitting on the chair. Captain Lone Wolf, I have to go out now, can you wait a moment? Haha, whatever the city lord said, I'll wait for you. Captain Lone Wolf replied cheerfully, obviously the kind of old man who has always been involved in human relationships. Outside the city lord's mansion, Xian Chen stood at the door, but he attracted the attention of many people. But it was such a person who made the housekeeper in the city lord's mansion extremely respectful. After a while, under the leadership of Zhao Fan, Moxin finally stepped out of the hall. Who is your excellency? Moxin stood at the door with a confused look on his face. After all, the current Xian Chen was really not something he could easily recognize. Today's Xian Chen has not only grown older, but his appearance and cultivation have also strengthened a lot. Haha, how come Moxin doesn't recognize his master so quickly? Xian Chen said lightly, looking at Moxin with eyes full of contempt. Moxin swallowed a mouthful of spit, looked at the familiar eyes, and immediately knelt down on the ground. He hurriedly bowed his head to Xian Chen and said with a fearful look on his face, I don't dare. I am blind and did not expect that the master would come back. Master, Zhao Fan and the middle-aged man looked at the scene with confused expressions. When Moxin noticed this, he hurriedly reminded the middle-aged man, Brother Zhao, this is our alliance leader. Leader? Dad? Didn't you say that our alliance leader is a young man? How could he be a young man? Zhao Fan asked with a suspicious look on his face, and Brother Zhao kicked Zhao Fan hard in the butt and cursed, You shut up, you traitor. Kneel down. Me, although Zhao Fan was reckless, he had great respect for his father's words. He immediately knelt down in front of Xian Chen, which made Xian Chen admire him greatly. Flames appeared in the palm of his hand, and then 3 pills appeared in everyone's eyes. Xian Chen said lightly to Moxin, These 2 red pills are pills that can help you directly break through to Douling. As for this green pill, the elixir can help you break through to become a Dou master. Moxin's expression changed and he immediately accepted it. After all, he already regarded Xianchen as a god-level existence. Brother Zhao's eyes were dazed. When he saw Moxian accepting it, he hurriedly accepted it and said respectfully to Xianchen, "Master's great kindness. Zhao Xiu will keep it in his heart." "Thank you, Master." Zhao Fan saw that his own father and son were so polite to Xianchen, so he hurriedly accepted it. After these people accepted Suanken's gifts, they stood up at Suanken's signal. Moxian looked at Xianchen, who had changed greatly. There were many doubts in his words, but he still apologized to Xianchen and said, "Master, your end." "Haha, it's my partner," Xianchen replied with a smile, and the seven-colored snake on his head nodded in cooperation. Oh! Although Moxian had a lot of doubts in his heart, when he thought of something, he hurriedly said to Xianchen, "By the way, Master, there is an old man who seems to know you. He has been living in the city lord's mansion for almost half a year. It's been months, but you haven't come back, so he went back to his old place and said he was waiting for you to come back." "Old man? Has he said who he is?" Xianchen frowned. He didn't know many people when he came to Tajer Desert. The only explanation for this situation is probably the former Ice King, Hai Badong. He has already left, and he didn't say his name. Moxian replied seriously, respectfully facing Xianchen. "The old man." Xianchen frowned and said nothing. Naturally, it was clear that Hai Badong's purpose of coming here was probably to restore him to the fighting emperor he once was. "How long do you plan to stay here, Master?" Moxian asked. He was not chasing Xianchen, but he was telling the truth. For Moxian, Xianchen's level was naturally impossible to be limited to this one. "In the city. I just stopped by to take a look. I didn't expect you to develop a Xianmeng," Xianchen joked, but Moxian scratched his head in embarrassment and laughed. "Hee, this is arranged by Brother Zhao. Brother Zhao is my childhood friend in the empire. This time I invited him to come and help." The way Moxian scratched his head was extremely funny. Perhaps it was because his brother was killed by Xianchen that he was able to see the light again. Zhao Xiu also nodded hurriedly towards Xianchen, obviously very pleased that Moxian could speak for him. "It is possible to develop the Xian alliance, but with your current strength, it is not an easy task to defend the city. Let's do this. After you stabilize your Douling cultivation, if there is a chance, I will give you the opportunity to step into Douwang. Here are 3 profound levels of advanced level and 1 level of intermediate level. You should practice first," Xianchen said, taking out 3 books of fighting skills. Looking at these 3 fighting skills, they were naturally extremely excited, and even Zhao Fan was extremely excited at this moment. After all, he knew that what he had achieved was all because of his father. "Leader, I plan to manage the Xian alliance as a family. However, based on the current situation, if we want to truly develop, I'm afraid we need a lot of resources." Zhao Xiu naturally knew Xianchen's strength, but for the thought it is not an easy task to truly develop an alliance. Xianchen frowned slightly, and then said to him, "I will prepare for this. You can take this Naja first. It contains the basic materials for establishing an alliance. Presumably, with these materials, at least there will be no collapse within 10 years chain." "Thank you, leader." Zhao Xiu burst into tears of gratitude. It is an extremely happy thing for people like them to be valued by a strong man with a fighting emperor. And Moxian is not jealous. After all, he is what he is today because of Xianchen's help. Therefore, for Zhao Xiu to be valued by Xianchen, his contribution will naturally be no less. "Since you are developing well, then I will give you another blessing." Xianchen exhaled a breath of turbid air, and then rose into the sky. In this sudden situation, those people were quite frightened. Moxian looked at Xianchen, who was flying without wings, in shock, and hurriedly asked Zhao Xiu in shock, "Brother Zhao. Master, What kind of strength does he have? He can actually fly without wings. Haha, brother Mo, I have to say that following him may be the most worthwhile decision in our lives. Zhao Xiu stroked his beard gently and looked at Xian Chen with both admiration and respect in his eyes. Dad, Master, what kind of cultivation is he? Has he surpassed Do Huang? Zhao Fan couldn't put it down while touching the Xian level intermediate fighting skill and asked Zhao Xiu. Zhao Xiu glanced at his son, then raised his head to look at Xian Chen, who was standing proudly in the sky, and said slowly, if my guess is correct, Master, he has most likely entered the Duzong. Duzong. Everyone was shocked. Oh my God, Master, which force does he come from? Could it be that he was always disguising himself back then? Moxin took a deep breath, thinking of Xian Chen when he was still a young man, and then looking at who he is now. Xian Chen, I have to say, his suspicion is not unreasonable. As for Xian Chen, who was standing above the city, he raised his hand and immediately saw many light spots floating around. In this spot of light scattered on the ground, almost at a speed visible to the naked eye, it began to take root in the desert. Looking at the greenery that continues to appear, the eyes of those passing by are filled with fear. The soldiers who were guarding the city walls screamed in shock when they saw flowers, plants, and trees appearing continuously within a radius of 100 miles. Looking at the greenery that has appeared and the lakes that are connected one after another, I have to say that it is very good to have a system. Xian Chen looked at the people standing in front of the city lord's palace, smiled faintly, and then rushed towards Heibodong's location. I don't know how many years have passed since Stone Desert City was transformed by Xian Chen. It can be said to be the most powerful human domain in the entire Tajer Desert. Heibodong, who was waiting silently for Xian Chen in Machan, looked up as if he was feeling something. However, when he noticed that the pretty woman in the red dress was looking at him curiously, he immediately returned to his usual coldness and silently painted his hands. The unfinished map in The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 185. Desert City. Because it is located in the Tagore Desert Fortress, it got its name for some reason. The last time he visited, he relied on air transport, but this time, Xian Chen traveled by air. Walking on air is not unheard of, but it is definitely unprecedented. Arriving at a place that was both familiar and unfamiliar, Xian Chen saw a huge city standing in the desert. Looking at the majestic giant city, Xian Chen stepped towards the giant city like a god descending to earth. Every ripple seems to be deliberately showing off its own abilities. The shocked expressions on the faces of the soldiers who were responsible for guarding the city gate after noticing the scene were not much lower than those of the soldiers on Stone Desert City. But this time, Xian Chen did not choose to enter through the city gate, but silently walked into the city step by step amid the shocked expressions of passers-by. Not long after, when Xian Chen was looking down at the ajar door of a shop, he landed smoothly from high altitude. As Xian Chen appeared, the eyes of those people were extremely frightened. After all, this situation was not something that they, the salty fish and the smelly shrimps, could easily offend. Xian Chen looked at the ajar door and then raised his hand to push it open. Who is this person? Why did he come here suddenly? Is he here to buy a map? What you're talking about is bullshit. If you don't buy a map when you come here, why can't you play chess with that old man? Haha, the little witch in the city is also in there. Those passers-by were filled with emotion. Since this city was regarded as an important city by the surrounding army groups, it can be said that it is busy with traffic, not much worse than those cities in the empire. Pushing the door open, the store still looks the same as before, but the only thing that has changed is that this time, the people around you have changed. Walking into the shop, I looked at the moonstones that emitted a faint light, so I walked aside, picked up a map and read it nonchalantly. When Xian Chen entered the store, he also attracted the attention of those waiting in the store. One of them was a rather pretty woman wearing a tight-fitting red dress. After noticing Xian Chen coming in, she seemed to have an indescribable magic power on her body, which attracted her deeply. I noticed that the woman in the red dress had been looking at the strange young man. The expressions of the other three people who might have come with her gradually became a little darker. "Sorry, I'm a little busy today. If you need a map, please come back tomorrow." The person who spoke was naturally Haibadong, but he was too focused on making maps, so as he was ignorant of what was going on outside the window, he naturally did not expect that the visitor would be Xian Chen, whom he had longed for day and night. Listening to Haibodong's reply, Xian Chen frowned slightly. Just as he was about to walk to his workplace, he was decisively blocked by two burly men. Ordinary people might be wary of the aura revealed by these two big men, but for Xian Chen, wanting to teach them a lesson would be like squeezing an ant to death. The handsome woman in the red dress saw her bodyguard lying down and holding a weapon and being rude to him, so she stepped up and slowly came to Xian Chen, lightly opened her lips, and said softly, "This young Master Bing made the map. I don't like to be disturbed by others when I'm on duty. I hope you don't mind if my two subordinates behave too recklessly." Although this woman's voice was too sweet, it did not affect any of Xian Chen's emotions. After all, for Xian Chen, he had seen too many beauties. However, although Xian Chen thought so, the other three men who admired this woman felt extremely uncomfortable at the moment. Among them, the most indispensable thing is to express their love to this woman. However, although this woman is beautiful in appearance, her personality is well known in the city as a savage witch. The appearance of this good girl now makes her companions feel a little incredible. "Haha, girl, although I'm not very familiar with him, we're not strangers either." Xian Chen smiled faintly, and his words and deeds seemed to come from a large family. What's more, since he stepped into Duzan, Suankan's impression has given people, although not as handsome as before, but it gives people a full sense of dependence. And after hearing Xian Chen's words, the beautiful woman's beautiful eyebrows trembled slightly. However, due to her identity, she didn't say much. After all, she was just coming to the shop to help Haibodong as before. Although she had doubted whether the old man was really as powerful as her father said, but ever since she angered the old man once, when the terrifying aura exuded by him made her feel trembling deep in her soul, he secretly made a vow to let the other party accept him as his disciple. "Do you really know him?" The handsome woman raised her eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of surprise towards Xian Chen in her eyes, as if Xian Chen's words were really incredible. But at this moment, the old man who had been silently carving the map slowly raised his head in confusion, but when he saw the unfamiliar face, the old man asked with confusion, "Your Excellency, you said you know me, why have I never seen you anywhere? Could it be that you are the child of one of my old acquaintances from within the empire?" Haibodong frowned. After all, he couldn't remember where he had seen the young man in front of him. What's more, apart from the aura of the young man in front of him, which made him feel faintly afraid, he still didn't know much about him. After hearing Haibodong's words, the handsome woman's tone was not as rude as before, but she was not necessarily rude to Xian Chen. With a polite look on her face, she continued to say to Xian Chen, "Perhaps the young master has recognized the wrong person, right? Master Bing, he must have admitted his mistake." The handsome woman seemed to be rescuing Xian Chen, but Haibodong glanced at her with a frown, then continued to lower his head and draw the map. Xian Chen saw that Haibodong didn't recognize him, so he decisively walked to where he was working, grabbed a handful of maps in the hand that was about to carve the map, and swung it at his arm. "Didn't you, old guy, wait for me in Stone Desert City for many days? Why, I came to see you today, but you don't recognize me anymore." "Stone Desert City?" Haibodong raised his eyebrows and looked at Xian Chen with complicated eyes. As for the old man, whose status was extremely noble in the heart of the handsome woman, his expression changed drastically after hearing the young man's words, which was naturally extremely wonderful. "Sir, are you doing this too abruptly? After all, Master Bing is also a senior, isn't he?" The girl in the red dress still helped Xian Chen to rescue him, as if she had a good relationship with Haibadong. "Haha, you are not unreasonable." Xian Chen scratched his head in embarrassment when he saw that the girl in the red dress kept helping him out. As for Haibadong, his expression also changed slightly after being beaten with the map by Xian Chen. Haibadong looked displeased, and as his anger arose in his heart, the surrounding objects were suddenly frozen into ice cubes by the sudden cold air. Noticing the changes around her, the girl in the red dress naturally knew that Master Bing was angry, and immediately apologized to Master Bing and said, "I'm sorry, Master Bing. This young master must have recognized the wrong person, I will take him away now." "Wait a minute," Xian Chen frowned and said, and the objects that were suddenly frozen into ice blocks returned to their original state in an instant. Haibodong's expression suddenly changed. The number of people in the entire Jiaji Empire who can dissolve his ice energy in an instant can be said to be counted on one hand. Although the face of the young man in front of him was extremely unfamiliar to him, just now, he seemed to have seen something familiar in the young man's eyes. The old man suddenly thought of something, and immediately stood up from his chair and asked Xian Chen in surprise, "Are you Xian Chen, the elder of Yunlin sect?" "That's right, it's me." Xian Chen laughed and showed a harmless smile. But when the girl in the red dress saw Master Bing and seemed to recognize who this young man was, the expression on her face changed drastically. After all, for her, she really hopes to be accepted as a disciple by a hidden powerhouse like Master Bing. Now let's not talk about Master Bing's attitude towards him in the past, but just relying on himself to save this young man might be a very good thing. However, she is destined to be disappointed. "Haha, this change of your excellency makes me feel a little scared, old man. I remember that when you left, you were still a young man. How come you have become like this after not seeing each other for such a short time?" Haibodong asked cheerfully, naturally curious about the changes in Xian Chen's appearance. However, after some testing, Haibodong's expression changed a lot when he couldn't tell Xian Chen's cultivation level. "Have you already broken through in your cultivation?" Haibodong asked with a frown, while Xian Chen said calmly without hesitation, "Haha, I accidentally broke through to Dozan." Accidentally broke through to Dozan, Haibodong clicked his tongue. He was confused and angry at the same time. Ever since he met someone like Xian Chen, it can be said that his three views have been changed. He is completely refreshed. As for the other young people, after hearing Xian Chen's words, although they were very frightened in their hearts, they still did not forget to ridicule him. After all, for these people, they would rather believe that this is false than never believe that it is true. Dozan. The girl in the red dress watched the scene with a blank expression. Although she wanted to interrupt, but in this situation, a person of her level was not able to interrupt casually. Haibodong smiled awkwardly, coughed dryly, then poured a cup of tea for Xian Chen himself, and continued to Xian Chen, "Haha, I don't know, have you done what you promised me back then?" Although Haibodong was a little skeptical of Xian Chen's words, for a person with unfathomable strength, he would rather be a friend than an enemy. Otherwise, he may remain unclear until his death. "Haha, of course." Xian Chen smiled lightly, and just grabbed a light yellow plant easily in his palm. When Haibodong saw that the shape of this plant turned out to be a coiled snake, the meaning in Haibodong's eyes revealed a hint of ecstasy. "This thing is so disgusting." The girl in the red dress looked at the top of the plant with disgust. There was a strange tumor as big as a fist, but she was so shocked that she felt retching. "Go away, go back, and tell your father that his tricks are really terrible." Haibodong just reached out to catch what Xian Chen handed over, when he heard the complaints from the girl in the red dress, and he immediately showed no mercy. He opened his mouth to expel him, which made the girl who had been serving Haibodong here silently feel so aggrieved that she wanted to cry. Looking at the tearful girl in the red dress, Xian Chen was also the kind of being who didn't like seeing women shed tears. He immediately smiled and said jokingly, "Haha, old man, although her words are indeed reckless, but this thing is indeed quite ugly. If it wasn't I promised you back then, but I'm afraid I won't bring it over." Hearing this, Hai Badong was slightly stunned when he heard Xian Chen's seemingly joking statement. Looking at Xian Chen's smiling face, he was silent for a moment, and then he flicked his light yellow ring, and an ancient scroll was easily taken out. He ejected this ancient scroll at the girl in the red dress, and then said helplessly, "Although you have indeed helped me a lot, I have already sworn not to accept any more disciples, so this scroll of low-level fighting skills at the Xian level, just think of it as compensation for these days." The girl in the red dress pursed her lips tightly and looked at the scroll in confusion for a long time. When she came to her senses, she bowed slightly towards He Bodong as a token of thanks. As the girl in the red dress left, those people stayed in the shop with confused faces. He Bodong looked at the young people who were still confused and said coldly, "What's the matter? Are you still thinking about being here with me? Can't eat?" "No, no, no. Master has misunderstood. Let's leave now." "Yes, yes. Leave now. Leave now." These young people left immediately, as if they did not dare to stay here for a second. After all, the air here is too depressing. It's even so suppressed that they can't even say a word. When He Bodong saw those people leaving, he rubbed his palms excitedly and asked Xian Chen with a curious look on his face, "Hey, since those people have left, I don't know when will you help me lift the ban, the elixir was refined." "Haha, if you have prepared enough prescriptions and materials, we can start refining now," Xian Chen said calmly. Hai Badong immediately walked to the door, closed it tightly, and then held Xian Chen's arm. Heading towards a secret room. Entering the secret room, Hai Badong took out a piece of ancient yellowed parchment under Xian Chen's gaze. After handing the parchment to Xian Chen, he said with a pained face, "Oh, sometimes it's really, I envy you alchemists. What we found with so much difficulty is just a matter of words for you." Although Hai Badong looked like he was complaining, in fact, he felt so beautiful that he was about to blossom. After all, for Hai Badong, nothing is more important than being able to restore his cultivation. Xian Chen, who looked at He Bodong taking out the treasures of heaven and earth with a smile on his face, then said lightly to He Bodong, "I didn't expect you to be quite prepared. If that's the case, then we can't let you down. Let's do this, I will refine it now, but you have to wait at the door now. After all, you also know that when the alchemist refines the elixir, no one else can observe it." "Haha, don't worry. He Bodong, understand all this, so I won't embarrass you, but I still hope that you can sincerely refine it for me." Although He Bodong said that he trusted Xian Chen, he still in my heart, I was wary of a mysterious person like Xian Chen. And Xian Chen could also see Xiaojiju in the other person's heart, but it was all tacit. After a moment of silence, Xian Chen continued, "I can help you refine it, but there is one thing I may need from you." "Help? Need my help? If you are really willing to help me." "Of course I am willing to help you." Hai Badong was confused for a moment, but still chose to believe the other party. After all, the deal is now settled and he cannot miss this opportunity. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 186. Powerdan. The 6th grade elixir has the miraculous effect of breaking most seals. Xian Chen looked at the contents of the elixir on the ancient parchment and murmured to himself silently. The effect of Podan is just like its name. It not only has the effect of breaking the seal, but after taking Podan, the user will also produce an antibody-like effect in his own body. If it were on normal days, maybe Xianchen wouldn't take this Poerden too seriously, but it's different now. The old man standing in front of him was once famous in the entire Jiama Empire, and even among the top 10 powerful men in the surrounding empires. 1. If Haibadong's cultivation can be restored, then a heavyweight role like Haibadong will definitely be beneficial to the development needs of the Xian alliance. What's more, Haibodong is already used to the days of idle clouds and wild cranes, so Xianchen is certainly not worried that after the other party recovers his cultivation, he will choose to return to the city full of disputes. Therefore, whether Haibodong can stay in Xianmeng or not depends absolutely on whether Poerdan can actually appear. You should wait outside first. When I refine it successfully, I will hand it over to you, Xianchen said calmly. Haibodong gave an awkward smile and walked out under Xianchen's gaze. As the door closed, Haibodong did not choose to leave directly. Instead, he found a clean place and chose to wait temporarily. For Haibodong, the importance of Poerden was no less than his life, so Haibodong was naturally extremely excited to have an alchemist come to help. Ever since his cultivation was sealed by Medusa, even though Haibodong had the look of a worldly master on his face all day long, only he knew the sorrow in his heart. As for Xianchen, who was said to be refining an elixir, he casually took a look at the refining method of the Poedan. Although he really wanted to refine it himself, for those who have the system, there is nothing better than being able to make it in the system. Direct purchasing is the happiest. After buying and selling the so-called Poerdan at the system store, a faint fragrance of Dan suddenly filled the room. Huh? Why does it smell so good? Haibodong, who was sitting outside but his butt was not yet warm, could vaguely smell the strange fragrance of the elixir. When he looked at the closed door with a shocked look, he shook his head again, as if he didn't believe that someone could refine a 6th-grade pill in such a short period of time. Become. In the room, Xianchen looked at the lavender elixir, which was round and shiny, and then couldn't help but hold it in front of him and look at it carefully. After noticing that there were many extremely delicate lines on the surface of this elixir, Xianchen secretly swore in his heart that when he had the right opportunity, he decided to try refining the elixir himself. Put the Poerdan into a clean and transparent glass bottle, then walked to the door and opened it. Since Haibodong was sitting not too far away from Xianchen, when he heard the door open, his expression was not that of shock, but that he was sitting on the steps with a confused look and was in a trance. Seeing the young man's appearance, Haibodong felt an ominous premonition in his heart almost instantly. He immediately walked quickly to Xianchen and looked at the calm face of Xianchen and the room filled with the strong aroma of medicine. Haibodong asked Xianchen tentatively, "Sir, has the Poerdan been successfully refined?" Looking at Haibodong, who had an eager look on his face, Xianchen frowned slightly, and then threw the glass bottle containing Poerdan into Haibodong's arms. Seeing the glass bottle thrown towards his face, Haibodong didn't care about his own image, and immediately used his hands and feet to take the glass bottle into his hand with an extremely embarrassed look. Looking at this cyan glass bottle, Haibodong's eyes changed slightly. Although the material of this glass bottle is not clear, the appearance of this glass bottle and the faint feeling of coldness are enough to prove that the price of this glass bottle is definitely high. To be able to fill it with such an expensive elixir bottle, the Poer elixir he dreamed of must have been successfully refined. This is, although Haibodong knew it well, he was still shocked that Xianchen was able to successfully refine Poerdan in less than half an hour. After all, even the current Dan King Furukawa cannot guarantee that he will be able to successfully refine this kind of 6th-grade elixir, right? Haha, what's wrong, old man, can this Poerdan be fake? Don't forget, I said I was a dozon, it's just that you don't believe it. Xianchen spread his hands helplessly. He still had a good impression of Haibodong, otherwise, he wouldn't have refined the so-called elixir for an unrelated guy. Although Suankin's tone seemed to be an understatement, in Haibodong's heart, he was shocked and fell to the ground. In addition to being shocked at Xian Chen, what's more, he is afraid. In the past, Hai Badong only thought that Xian Chen was a young master from a certain family in Zhongzhou. After all, there were countless young fighting emperors in Zhongzhou. Otherwise, the entire Doqi continent would not be based on Zhongzhou. But now that I have seen Xian Chen's methods, it can be said that Hai Badong's whole outlook has been completely refreshed. With such an unheard of method, even in Zhongzhou, I am afraid it would be difficult to find 5 people. At least, this is what Hai Badong thinks in his heart. Haha, little brother, I'm joking, but don't worry, I asked you to help refine this Bao'erdan, so no matter whether it is successful or not, I owe you a favor. Hai Badong was once the Ice King, so he naturally took things like promises much more seriously than the average person, not to mention that it was related to his face, so in the face of such an existence with unfathomable strength, Hai Badong naturally, it was difficult for Dong to act so condescending. Okay, let's go and lift the seal. I think this yard is nice, so I'll take a short break. When your seal is successfully cracked, I still have things to discuss with you. Xian Chen smiled faintly and motioned to Hai Badong to quickly lift Medusa for his seal. However, while the two were talking, a strange color appeared in the eyes of the colorful little snake transformed from Medusa. Regarding this change, Xian Chen's current cultivation level can naturally clearly judge that the colorful little snake at this moment restored Medusa's short-lived consciousness in almost a breath of time. However, Xian Chen didn't care much about the colorful snake, so after signaling Hai Badong to break the seal, he walked to a pavilion as if nothing had happened and sat there quietly drinking tea. Hai Badong swallowed a mouthful of foam. Just now, he seemed to see in Xian Chen an aura that only the strong could possess. Therefore, Hai Badong also secretly made a decision in his heart. No matter whether the effect of breaking the Eden was successful or not, he could definitely only be friends with Xian Chen, not his enemy. Looking at Hai Badong's leaving figure, the colorful snake on Xian Chen's head slowly swam down from his head in a very interesting way. Squeak! The colorful little snake gently licked the back of Xian Chen's hand, as if saying that it also wanted to drink. Looking at this cute little guy, Xian Chen smiled lightly and took out the colorful snake's favorite amethyst source. Looking at the bottle full of companion amethyst source, the colorful little snake immediately swam happily on the table. Under Xian Chen's gaze, the colorful little snake looked like it was on its back, and stretched out its head to lick the apricot. Eat the little jade bottle filled with purple liquid. Looking at its small appearance, Xian Chen stretched out his fingers and gently pressed on the top of the other person's head. Just as Xian Chen was caressing the colorful snake, an extremely fierce aura suddenly erupted from the place where Hai Badong was practicing in seclusion. This sudden terrifying momentum made the whole house seem to tremble slightly. The colorful little snake was startled, as if it had seen something extraordinary. It hurriedly scurried and coiled itself on Xian Chen's head again, as if it were a dead thing, with a pair of snake eyes open, staring straight at it. Ahead. With the emergence of this terrifying momentum, Xian Chen also stood up from the chair, but at this moment, the roof of the secret room where Hai Badong was supposed to be practicing suddenly exploded, followed by a man with a crystal clear body behind him. The old man with ice wings stood firmly in the air with everyone looking up. The passers-by looked at the sky in shock, unable to believe that the seemingly ordinary old man was actually a high-level fighting emperor hidden in the desert. And even the girl in the red dress and others who had left not long ago had extremely wonderful expressions at this moment. A young man following the girl in the red dress saw this situation, his voice almost trembled, and asked, "What's going on, is that old man the Do Huang?" "I don't know, I just regret it so much now, I actually missed a Do Huang teacher." The girl in the red dress was so aggrieved that she shed tears. But just as they were talking and there was a lot of discussion around them, another statement surprised them all. The picture happened in vain. Boom! A figure even more powerful than Hai Badong instantly shot up into the sky. The young man had a cold and handsome appearance. After noticing that Haibadong had regained his strength, he smiled softly and said, it seems that this is a bad thing. Dan does have a good effect, old man, don't forget that you owe me a favor. Ha ha ha. The emotions that had been accumulated for many years finally burst out at this moment, and a large amount of ice-type fighting energy swept away towards the surroundings, freezing many houses in an instant. Looking at the scattered frozen houses, Xian Chen frowned slightly, but when he noticed that there were some unfrozen houses around the frozen houses, Xian Chen vaguely guessed something in his heart. After Haibadong finished venting his anger, his old eyes that should have been cloudy suddenly flashed with light when he saw that Xian Chen could fly without wings. Although he had doubted that Xian Chen's strength was indeed good, he never expected that it would be so incredible. It's not that there aren't people who fly without wings, but even if there are people, it's absolutely impossible for them to appear here. Now a truly strong man stood in front of him, and he was the one who helped him. Thank you. Brother Xian Haibadong, who had recovered his cultivation, showed the power of a king all over his body. He looked like a king. When he looked at Xian Chen, his eyes were not so disdainful, but extremely respect. Although Haibadong is several times older than Xian Chen, according to the rules of the strong men in Doqi continent, no matter how young Xian Chen is. But as long as the strength is higher than him, then it doesn't matter if they are brothers. Looking at Haibadong with a friendly face, Xian Chen naturally knew very well that inviting the other party to his Xian alliance seemed to have gradually become easier as his cultivation level increased. Haha, you're welcome. Help between strong men is meant to help each other. Besides, I still need your help with something, right? Xian Chen smiled lightly and spoke calmly to Haibadong. Hearing this, Haibadong was slightly startled. For Haibadong, it is not easy to be recognized by a strong man, not to mention that Xian Chen is still a super person who is very likely to be a Duzong. A strong man, so Haibadong naturally felt a little confused when such a strong man asked for help. Xian Chen noticed Haibadong's expression and naturally knew what Haibadong was hesitating about. Xian Chen took out a book of fighting skills from Naja, and then used his fighting energy to push it in front of Haibadong. Looking at this fighting skill, Haibodong was slightly confused, but as the fighting energy disappeared, when Haibodong saw clearly the name and grade of the fighting skill in his hand, he was shocked and speechless. Haibodong, who was trembling all over, looked at Xian Chen in surprise, and asked Xian Chen in disbelief, "Boy, what are you doing?" Haibodong was shocked. If this fighting skill was from the Xian level, he might be a little surprised, but if it was from a local level senior, he would be shocked to the point of going crazy. Earth level advanced fighting skills does not mean that there are none, but it can be described as rare. This kind of fighting skill, not to mention it will cause contention in the world, even in Zhongzhou, it will set off a bloody storm. What do you mean? Haibodong was so shocked that he couldn't breathe normally. First, the other party was able to easily refine 6th grade elixirs, now, he was able to throw out fighting skills as easily as selling vegetables on the street. I have to say that the young man in front of me is really too mysterious. Haha, of course I give it to you. Xian Chen smiled lightly, obviously seeing that Haibodong could no longer calm down the complexity deep in his heart. No reward for no merit, tell me, what exactly do you need me to do? Although Haibodong has returned to Duhuang, he is very clear about the weight of this high-ranking person. Although he was extremely excited, if it was a very dangerous thing, then he could only choose to refuse. After all, it was better to live with a life than to live without a life. It's nothing serious. I just want you to help me cultivate the Xian alliance I established. Xian Chen scratched his head and showed a harmless smile. Perhaps for him, having a system is equivalent to having all the treasures, but for Haibodong, having a local high-level fighting skill means he has the qualifications to travel to Zhongzhou. Xian Meng. Haibodong looked at Xian Chen with a puzzled expression. Looking at Suankan's innocent expression, he felt a little strange. After seeing Xian Chen's strength, Hai Badong even began to wonder if Xian Chen's so-called Xian alliance might also be as skilled as the clouds. I'm just a Do Huang, how can I be so virtuous? Hai Badong explained euphemistically, and it didn't sound like he was rejecting. Seeing his appearance, Xian Chen took out another trident that exuded terrifying pressure. As soon as this trident appeared, thunder sounded in the sky, and then heavy rain poured down. Under the baptism of this violent storm, Hai Badong's expression became extremely serious. This is the Poseidon trident. It is the weapon of a former Poseidon. Now I give it to you. You can weigh it yourself. Xian Chen threw the Poseidon trident towards Hai Badong, who held the trident tightly. Gee, I instantly felt my whole body tremble like an electric shock. Poseidon trident. Hai Badong looked at the weapon in his hand seriously. The moment he held the weapon tightly in his hand, his own strength was constantly increasing. Boom! Following a thunderous sound, the wings behind Hai Badong's back disappeared in an instant. And just when Hai Badong thought he was about to land, he was surprised to find out. Like Xian Chen, he could actually stand stably in the air without wings. This is it. Hai Badong looked at Xian Chen in shock, but Xian Chen smiled lightly and said, I have told you that this trident was once the weapon of a god, now I give it to you. If you are interested, please agree to join my Xianmeng and train my subordinates. Hai Badong swallowed a mouthful of spit. Feeling like someone is in control of the overall situation is really not something that ordinary people can easily bear. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 187. Boy, there are so many treasures that are unheard of. Where did you get them all? You know, even if there is such a treasure, it definitely cannot belong to this world, right? Hai Badong asked in shock, but he was more surprised than ever about these treasures of unknown origin. Xian Chen smiled faintly, knowing that he knew Hai Badong's inner thoughts. However, he and Hai Badong had not known each other for a long time, so it was naturally impossible for him to tell each other his true origins. Haha, don't ask any more about these things. After all, it won't do you any good to ask, so just accept it in a down-to-earth manner. But I have to say something ugly ahead of you. You must help me cultivate Xianmeng. Otherwise, don't say that I, Xian Chen, don't pay attention to the ethics of the world. Although Xian Chen didn't finish what he said, the meaning behind it shocked Hai Badong. If Hai Badong really didn't want to help Xian Chen, then Hai Badong would definitely believe it, considering Xian Chen's strength. Will definitely kill him. Now that Hai Badong was like the Ni Bodhisattva, he could not save himself when crossing the river. He had already figured it out, and now Xian Chen was determined to win over him. And being able to give so many treasures is nothing more than shocking Hai Badong. If Xian Chen can take out so many valuable treasures at one time, he definitely has the strength to kill him easily. Hai Badong was scared, he was really scared, even though he was once the Ice King who shocked the entire empire. At this moment, in front of this young man, he felt helpless like never before. Hai Badong lowered his head and looked at the so-called trident. How much he wanted to throw it away. However, if he really throws it away, death will definitely be what greets him next. Faced with this situation, Hai Badong could not be stupid enough to continue to antagonize Xian Chen. Otherwise, he knew very well what the consequences would be. If I don't agree, will you kill me? Hai Badong took a deep breath and looked at Xian Chen with eyes full of fear. It is conceivable that Xian Chen's influence on him was enough to imprint the fear in his mind, so, even though he knew the outcome very well, he still managed to escape with a lucky attitude. Haha, I won't kill you. It's just because I've been fooled. If you really want to leave, leave as soon as possible. After all, for me, Xian Chen, there is no such thing as business. Xian Chen's very calm tone made Hai Badong feel an invisible sense of oppression. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the other party carefully. But after looking at him for a few seconds, he found that he still couldn't see through the other person. After a while, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. He said helplessly to Xian Chen, "Haha, I have to say, you really make me feel more scared than ever before, since you are all you have given me so many good treasures, so if I, Hai Badong, push back and forth, wouldn't that mean that I, Hai Badong, don't know how to be a good person? Let's do this. I can promise to help you cultivate the Xian Alliance, but it can only be for 1 year. Within this year, I can help you develop your power, but after 1 year, you must return my freedom." He Bodong smiled faintly, but he felt extremely aggrieved no matter how he looked at it. He used to be so aloof and domineering, but now, he had to bow to a junior, even in a begging tone. Xian Chen glanced at him lightly and saw that although he agreed on the surface, he was extremely dissatisfied in his heart, so he stretched out his hand towards He Bodong's position and just squeezed it tightly. Then the space around He Bodong began to expand in an instant. Extremely rapid contraction. Under this sudden change, Hai Badong frowned and immediately burst out with fighting energy, trying to resist the pressure of infinite contraction. However, as the Doqi ice crystals around his body continued to break and his face turned red, Hai Badong had no choice but to give up his resistance. Seeing the other person closing his eyes and choosing death, Xian Chen took back the invisible feeling of oppression. Hai Badong, who was so arrogant, slowly opened his eyes, looked at the young man in front of him, exhaled a deep breath, and said helplessly, "I didn't expect you to be able to reach such a height. I, Hai Badong, am convinced." Hai Badong? Who is Hai Badong? Why does it sound so familiar? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. I remember that among the top 10 powerful men in Argyo Ma Empire, there seems to be one named Hai Badong, and his title is also because his fighting spirit attribute is ice, so he is respected by the world as the Ice Emperor. Oh my god, what happened to our little broken city? Two super strong people appeared at the same time in one day. Normally, I would never dare to think about this. Who says it's not the case? This is a fighting emperor, a serious fighting emperor. Hai Badong listened to the discussion below, but his mood was very complicated. Ever since he accepted the trident given by Xian Chen, he clearly felt that his own strength had far exceeded the threshold of Do Huang. Although this feeling is very fantasy, he can clearly understand the power brought by this trident. However, even with this increase in energy, he still couldn't survive even half a move from Xian Chen. So I have to say that Hai Badong has been completely suppressed by Xian Chen at this moment. That's what I promise you. He Bodong said unwillingly. He thought that after regaining his strength, he could travel to the surrounding countries again, but what happened was that he was captured and used as a guard dog. If it were Hai Badong in the past, he might have chosen death, but now he has seen through it from a distance. If you want to truly survive in this world, then you must attach yourself to another powerful force. Otherwise, the result of working alone will still be the result of being sealed. Haha, if you had promised me earlier, I would have saved myself from taking action. Xian Chen deliberately complained, not forgetting to take out a simple yellow ring from the ring. He threw this ancient ring towards He Bodong and then said with a smile on his face, "It contains the materials needed to develop the Xian Alliance. With it, maybe you will feel more relaxed." Xian Chen spoke calmly, his tone was cold, and Hai Badong couldn't help but shudder. Looking at this so-called Naja, Hai Badong probably never thought that Xian Chen would think about it for so long. "You have already considered that I would agree." Although Hai Badong felt complicated, he still gritted his teeth and spoke, obviously extremely afraid of being toyed with and applauded. "Haha, I can't say that I am very sure, but I am very clear about my own strength. Now that you are willing to join our Xian Alliance, from today on, you will be the elder of my Xian Alliance. When it stabilizes in the future, I will so that the positions can be reassigned." He Bodong looked at Xian Chen with a speechless expression. He had just observed the Naja accidentally and found that the treasures inside could be described as incomparable wonders. He had an extra level of respect for people like Xian Chen. Learn. Okay, but let's make an agreement first. No matter what, I will only stay with you for 1 year. After 1 year, no matter what, you must let me leave. Otherwise, even if your ability is indeed powerful, even if you fight to death, I will definitely leave. He Bodong let out a breath of turbidity, and did not even dare to look directly at Xian Chen. If those who had known the Ice Emperor before saw the Ice Emperor in this state again, perhaps they would feel real fear. The mood of those people who eat melons is also extremely complicated. Who is the Ice Emperor, but now he is obeying a young man as if he is mentally retarded? How much they want to see a fight between two absolutely strong men, but then they think about it, if they really fight, wouldn't they be the ones who are wronged? Oh, I wish I could see them fight. That's right, if they can fight, I will accept it even if it means death. Wake up, if a fight really breaks out, you will feel how childish your words are. There is no shortage of stupid and ignorant people among these people. After all, to them, the person standing in mid-air is completely a godlike existence. I can agree to your request, but I also believe that you will definitely change your mind after half a year. Xian Chen smiled faintly, obviously understanding what Hai Badong was thinking. Hai Badong also lowered his head with dull eyes. For him, he had indeed thought about what he would do if he really followed Xian Chen. So for him, is it good or bad? In that case, let's wait and see. But before that, can you deny that I go out for a walk? After all, I have been holding back for so long, I also want to see what the world has become. Hai Badong's arrogance completely disappeared. He had chosen to compromise. Naturally, he would not have too many interactions with Xian Chen because he knew that if he continued to dispute with Xian Chen, what would be left to him would definitely be die. This time Xian Chen did not reply, but nodded silently, and then flew towards the direction of the Gamma Empire under Hai Badong's confused gaze. Looking at the wingless back, Hai Badong looked down at the trident in his hand and felt a little sad. After leaving, Xian Chen was like a god descending from heaven, exuding the aura of a king from top to bottom. Everywhere he passed, his divine power would make all living beings timid. The only thing that remained unchanged was the little snake coiled silently above his head. Xian Chen looked at the sentient beings kneeling down to worship, but he didn't have any emotion at all. Along the way, perhaps because of his own strength, the journey was not as uncomfortable as imagined. Yunlin sect, the place Xian Chen has longed for since he time traveled, this is his most important home. Yun Yun, Nalan Yanran, Ruan Suanji, and so on, the women he had liked were all there. Where is the little medical fairy? Xian Chen suddenly remembered something, frowned, and then began to rely on the upgraded system to find the whereabouts of the little medical fairy. Located in a relatively secluded village in the Jiama Empire, Xian Chen stood in the air and could clearly see the people busy in the fields. These people live a life without fighting against the world, which is also the life that Xian Chen longs for most. How much he wished he could live this kind of life, but his strength did not allow it. Ever since he changed the rules of Dochi continent, he had discovered that the world was changing little by little just because of his appearance. But what is worth mentioning is that those people work silently as if they were blind. Looking at those guys who had no fighting spirit at all, Xian Chen raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. Falling from the sky to the bottom, perhaps because those people were too focused, they did not notice the sudden appearance of the figure. Xian Chen said to one of the peasant women with a smile, "Sister, is there a girl named Little Medical Fairy here?" Little Medical Fairy, the peasant woman turned her head in confusion, but when she looked at this handsome young man, a blush instantly appeared on her handsome face. You're not living up to expectations, you're blushing when you see a young guy. However, at this moment, an ordinary-looking man dropped his hoe with a stern look on his face. Xian Chen frowned and glanced at the other party, and found that the other party was also a being without fighting spirit, and then hurriedly said, "Haha, please don't get me wrong, brother, I am a friend of Missioner. I don't know you, leave quickly." The man looked impatient, but there was a bit of impatience and uneasiness in his impatience. Xian Chen had a panoramic view, and naturally knew that he was hiding it and didn't want to tell himself. After a moment of silence, Xian Chen continued to say to the person, "I am really her friend. I don't believe you." As soon as Xian Chen finished speaking, a photo of a modern product floated in front of them. Looking at this strange scene, the man and woman stood there with confused expressions, seemingly at a loss. Xian Chen saw their thoughts and immediately continued, "If you know her whereabouts, please tell me. She is very important to me. You don't look like a bad person, but I still advise you to leave, do you know? Although that girl is also an outsider, she has helped our village a lot. It's just that she is so pretty, so, she also encountered some troubles. Oh, such a pretty girl, what a pity." The man had a sad expression on his face, and it could be seen that he had benefited a lot from the little medical fairy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have talked so much nonsense with Xian Chen. "Get out of here. Get out of here quickly. If you get hit, you won't lose your life." Just as Xian Chen was talking to them, suddenly a huge team was rushing towards them. Xian Chen frowned, looking at the team but unable to say a word. He really didn't want to see such a vulgar appearance again. Hey, just when the boy riding the monster was about to run 3 meters away from Xian Chen, he hurriedly stopped and raised the whip in his hand, intending to throw it at Xian Chen's head. Stop, however, at this moment, a middle-aged man among the accompanying crowd shouted hurriedly. The whip that the young man had already swung was withdrawn at will. Just when it was about to fall on Xian Chen, the middle-aged man hurriedly jumped from the monster to Xian Chen, and hurriedly took action to hit the whip. The whip was held tightly in his hand. "Third uncle," the young man looked shocked. He couldn't believe that his third uncle would suddenly stand up at this time. "What are you doing? Who told you to hurt innocent people?" the middle-aged man roared angrily, but the young man was scolded and couldn't say a word. The middle-aged man let out a deep breath, then turned around quickly, clasped his fists respectfully toward Xian Chen and asked, "I wonder which family in the empire you come from. My stubborn nephew has a violent personality. I hope this young master will be tolerant." "The Xiao family in Wuyuan City," Xian Chen replied with an indifferent expression, without even a trace of emotion. After the middle-aged man and those others heard Xian Chen's reply, they were shocked and speechless, as if they had seen Xian Chen, as if they had seen the god of plague. "Third uncle." The young man swallowed a mouthful of spit, but the middle-aged man wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and continued to Xian Chen, "To be honest, we are from the Zhao family of Liasu City, and we are different from Xiao, the head of the Xiao family of Wuyuan City. We are old friends, I just don't know who your excellency is." "Haha, my name is Xian Chen, and the Xiao Bubu you are talking about is my father." "What? The strongest husband of Dopo." Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 188. "What? You said you are Mr. Xian Chen. How is this possible? I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Xian Chen once. I remember it was a day when the cultivation of family disciples was tested. Although he was young, the image he displayed was extremely shocking. You can reach the level of Doshi at such a young age. Looking at the entire Jiama Empire, it is impossible to find someone like him. And you are obviously older than him, how could it be him?" The middle-aged man was not only shocked, but also more deceived by the strange young man in front of him. "After all, it was only half a year since I went to the Xiao family. How could a young man be here in such a short period of time? When you say grow into an adult, grow into an adult. Therefore, for middle-aged people, the young man in front of them is just pretending to be the original genius disciple of the Xiao family. The young man also had a look of disdain on his face. Ever since his third uncle returned to the family, he had told all about Xian Chen. Such an awesome genius has already left a deep imprint on this young man's heart, so the existence that he regards as his idol is now suddenly impersonated. Naturally, the young man is extremely angry. It's just that these people are just a bunch of old fools, so they didn't tell the story too perfectly, which caused the domestic slaves who followed them to laugh up at the sky. Is this the Zhao family in Liasu City? I remember it. Xian Chen smiled faintly, and then, with these people looking confused, he turned around and continued to ask the elder brothers who were still busy, "Brother, can you take me to find them, Monsieur? I am willing to pay a lot of money as a token of my gratitude." After Xian Chen finished speaking, he threw out 10,000 gold coins. The heavy wooden box was imprisoned in front of the big brother smoothly. Seeing so many golden coins, the elder brother was so frightened that he became incoherent. The village he was in was similar to that of indigenous people, so he was naturally extremely shocked by so many gold coins. Even those in the Zhao family had expressions of astonishment. It was incredible that they could give away 10,000 gold coins just to find the whereabouts of a girl. "Third uncle, he seems to be looking for Miss Yenner too. Could it be that he is the little medical fairy of the Xiao family in Wutan City?" Although the young man has a reckless personality, it does not mean that his IQ must be stupid. His words instantly awakened the dreamer. "Yes, we are indeed looking for Miss Yenner. Could it be that he is really from the Xiao family in Wutan City?" Although Butler Zhao was confused, he no longer dared to take the young man in front of him seriously. "Brother Lu, why don't you take him to see Miss Yenner? I think this young man is young and looks good, so he doesn't look like a bad person." The woman who was hoeing the land, her eyes lit up after seeing so many gold coins, had already considered whether to give up farming and go to the city to find a business. The man whom he called Brother Lu was silent. Although he wanted to take these gold coins very much, considering that the little medical fairy had saved their village after all, he immediately smiled at Xian Chen and refused. "I'm sorry, young master, I can't. Not to mention that what you gave me can solve my family problems, but if I really take it, someone will definitely stab me in the back. I'm not a bad person." Xian Chen could see that the other party was a person who knew how to repay kindness, so he didn't make it too difficult. Instead, he left a word and walked towards the entrance of the village, preparing to search for it himself. Boom! The heavy gold coins fell to the ground, and even a lot of them flew out. The eyes of the slaves surnamed Zhao naturally lit up when they saw so many gold coins. It was obvious that they had the intention of murdering and stealing these gold coins. "Let's go in too." Butler Zhao exhaled a breath and followed Xian Chen from a distance, as if he was deliberately keeping a certain distance. Ignoring the traces of those guys, Xian Chen finally came to an extremely simple private courtyard. Looking at the courtyard hut made of wood, Xian Chen became more energetic and began to search the courtyard. Finally, he found the figure of the little medical fairy, so he gently opened the door and stood in the courtyard, looking at the neatly arranged medicine jars. The strong aroma of Chinese medicine blends into the air, which is particularly bitter. Xian Chen let out a breath of turbid air, and the fire in his palm appeared instantly. His thoughts surged, and then the fire in his palm swooped towards the burning wood. What should have been a slow flame suddenly turned into a blazing fire. Since all bamboo wood was used, the explosion of the bamboo wood also indirectly attracted the attention of the woman in the house. A beautiful girl in a white plain skirt walked out of the house. Seeing a strange man standing in the courtyard, the little medical fairy frowned slightly and asked the visitor in confusion, "Who are you? Why do you want to do this? Come to my place. If you are from the village, didn't you agree that you can't come to my place before the time comes?" This familiar yet unfamiliar voice made Xian Chen slowly turn around. He originally thought that the little medical fairy would fall into his arms excitedly, but that thought turned out to be nothing more than Xian Chen's wishful thinking. Since Xianqian's appearance has changed drastically, it is naturally impossible for the little medical fairy to recognize him. Xian'er. Xianqian calmly called the little medical fairy. Listening to this familiar yet unfamiliar voice, the somewhat confused little medical fairy didn't even have time to react. He had already seen several neat teams, heading towards enter the courtyard. These people were the teams that Xianqian met earlier who claimed to be helping the Xiao family to find people. Although they said so, the little medical fairy's eyes were filled with anger after seeing those people. Especially when looking at the young man, the little medical fairy was so angry that she picked up the wooden stick on the side, as if those people dared to take another step forward, she would immediately stop them. I wonder if the girl is a little medical fairy? We are from the Zhao family in Liasu City. We were invited by Xiao Bulletin from Wuyutan City and came here to invite the girl back home. Butler Zhao is worthy of being a person who has traveled all over the world all year round. With just a few words, the accompanying domestic slaves were in awe of him. And even the young man who was following him looked at the little medical fairy with greed in his eyes. It was as if the little medical fairy was not a person at all in his eyes, but a toy suitable only for his entertainment. When the little medical fairy heard the word Xiao family, her body trembled slightly. She had a puzzled look on her face, and her face was filled with anger in an instant. She sneered at these people in a cold voice, "What a Xiao family, because I am the most senior. He kicked me out of the Xiao mansion because he was shallow and had no connections, and now he is looking for someone to find me back. Haha, what's the matter? Doesn't my little medical fairy have a temper?" Xianqian frowned slightly. He liked the little medical fairy from the bottom of his heart, but this kind of love was second only to that between brother and sister. For the little medical fairy, although I can't talk about love, just the word like is enough to be very heavy. However, the way the little medical fairy looks now is obviously because he received bad treatment after leaving the Xiao family. Otherwise, he would not have come here and suffered such a grievedness. The young man saw the little medical fairy taunting him, but he was not angry. He smiled at Butler Zhao and said, "Third uncle, this person is unfamiliar with this place. Why don't you tie her up and make her my maid?" "Shut up. You beast, how can such words come out of your mouth? It really embarrasses our Zhao family." Butler Zhao roared angrily, and even raised his hand to slap the other party hard. But the young man covered his face and retorted unwillingly, "What's wrong with me? I just like her. Can't I be with her?" "Shut up. Do you like other people? You are greedy for their bodies. You are despicable," the middle-aged man cursed loudly, but it attracted the attention of many villagers. Although the cultural level of the villagers is not as good as those who know how to do business, they still attach great importance to gratitude. Some young and powerful young people saw someone bullying the little medical fairy. They all immediately picked up hoes and shovels, obviously preparing to have a hard time with these people from the city. Looking at these villagers who were ready to make a move, Butler Zhao didn't look particularly good looking. He is a 9-star fighting master, and he is only one step away from becoming a great fighting master. If it weren't for the clan leader's special arrangement for him to come here today to prevent the young man from doing anything outrageous, I'm afraid that given his status, it would be absolutely impossible for him to come to such a poor place. "Miss Yenner, this boy's moods are up and down. I hope you don't mind. We are really invited by the Xiao family to invite you back. Please be sure to give Zhang some face so as not to offend Zhao." Butler Zhao still looks like a good old man, but the only thing that has changed is that his respect for the little medical fairy has completely disappeared. This is the territory of Liasu City, and it can't be further away from Wuyutan City. Therefore, as to whether the little medical fairy is willing to go back, Butler Zhao is just making a visit. "You go, I won't go back with you. Go back and tell him Xiao Buobu, just say that I, the little medical fairy, have never thought about marrying Xianqian. And I have never thought about climbing into their Xiao family. Listening to the little medical fairy's words, Xian Chen covered his heart. Although he didn't know exactly why, just after the little medical fairy said that he didn't want to marry him, his whole heart felt like a knife being twisted. In this case, don't blame me for offending you. Butler Zhao saw that his good words and persuasion were of no use, so he waved his hand, and the slaves who followed him had already taken out the tools used to kidnap the little medical fairy. What do you want to do? The little fairy doctor's face turned pale. She held the white powder in her hand and immediately threw it out. The Zhao family members were so fascinated that they covered their eyes, as if the white powder was highly poisonous. Butler Zhao unleashed his fighting spirit and relied on the fighting spirit barrier to block the white powder without being harmed. However, his domestic slaves were not so lucky. The white powder developed by the little medical fairy could cause even a great dough master to be temporarily confused if they were not careful. Catch her, Butler Zhao was furious. If he hadn't been invited by an old friend, he would never have chosen to fight with a young girl. When those evil slaves heard Butler Zhao's arrangement, they rushed out immediately. After all, they had just been seriously attacked by the powder from the little medical fairy. Those evil slaves who couldn't open their eyes pulled out their swords one after another and showed that they wanted to teach the little medical fairy a lesson. Looking at this scene, the villagers who were watching silently at the door could not possibly watch the little medical fairy being injured. They all grabbed their hoes and shovels and swarmed towards the small yard. If you dare to bully Miss Yenner, even if we die, we will make you pay the price. That's right. Miss Yenner is our savior. How could we just watch her being bullied by you? A bunch of guys who don't care about life and death. I think you are tired of living, Mr. Zhao roared angrily, and immediately clenched his sword and stabbed the villagers who rushed forward first. These villagers are a group of ordinary people who don't care about worldly affairs. Facing these people who can cultivate, they are naturally afraid to death. Now it is a good thing to be able to brave life and death for the little medical fairy. Stop it, fellow citizens. You are no match for them. The little medical fairy saw how these villagers would fight these people at the risk of their own lives for her own sake, and she was extremely moved in her heart. Xian Chen frowned slightly, then walked up to the little medical fairy and looked at him condescendingly, his eyes full of doting. Xianer, I'm Xian Chen, don't you recognize me? Xian Chen's affectionate look made the little medical fairy slightly stunned. The people who came in front were chatting with each other, completely forgetting about this uninvited guest. Now, under the other party's affectionate gaze, these extremely familiar eyes made her feel like she had returned to the time when she first dated the other party. Although the appearance of the person in front of him has changed drastically, his eyes will not deceive him. Are you really Xian Chen? The little medical fairy stretched out her hand to touch Xian Chen's cheek. Her fingers were trembling slightly. She couldn't believe that Xian Chen, who had left at the beginning, would find herself here. It's true. Xian Chen's peaceful smile made the slightly puzzled little medical fairy instantly reach out and hug him. Under this sudden embrace, the small courtyard that should have been noisy became eerily quiet. You can almost clearly hear the beating of a person's heart. Xian Chen. Butler Zhao frowned and looked deeply at the young man who called himself Xian Chen, feeling deeply fearful. In his impression, Xian Chen should be that kind of boy, but now he is a young man. This situation, even for others, would be difficult to accept for a while. Haha, Butler Zhao, you have such a big temper. When will it be your turn for my Xian Chen woman to worry about me? Suankan's expression was indifferent, and his tone was full of murderous intent. Those servants surnamed Zhao were not aware of the situation. They could only see that the stewards they trusted and were proud of were now as timid as a mouse meeting a cat, and they couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Butler Zhao swallowed a mouthful of spit, calmed down his emotions, pretended to be a senior, frowned and said, "Haha, even if you are the real Xian Chen, so what? I am different from your father Xiao, who grew up playing around big friend. I don't believe it, you can still hit me." Pa, As soon as Butler Zhao finished speaking, Xian Chen's slap fell on his cheek. Since the elderly Butler Zhao has consolidated his position in Liasu City, he bullies others, and no one can bully him. What's more, he was being taught a lesson in front of his subordinates, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and immediately burst out with fighting energy, hoping to suppress Xian Chen. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 189. Boy. No matter who you are today. If you dare to hit me, you will pay the price today. Butler Zhao was furious, and the vindictiveness that broke out immediately was terrifying. The domestic slaves who were following around all looked excited, obviously because Butler Zhao's action made them feel extremely proud. Then, just when Butler Zhao's fighting spirit burst out, Xian Chen killed him on the spot with just one look. Seeing Butler Zhao, who was arrogant 1 second, turned into a dead man the next second, the servants of the Zhao family were so frightened that they started shaking. Even young Master Zhao was so frightened that he could not speak coherently. After all, he had never seen this kind of situation before and never thought it would happen. Seeing Butler Zhao, who was exploded into blood mist, the villagers were so frightened that they knelt down one after another. In the eyes of ordinary people like them, Xian Chen's appearance is like a god in the sky. The little medical fairy looked at Xian Chen in surprise. Although he knew that Xian Chen's cultivation was relatively strong, he never thought that with one look, he could make people explode to death. Every one of you today counts, don't even think about running away, Xian Chen shouted softly, and the power of space distortion exploded in vain. How can these salted fish and stinky shrimps easily resist? Under Xian Chen's terrifying power, the servants of the Zhao family knelt down and kowtowed. After all, they had really kicked the iron plate. How could a terrifying existence that could easily kill a quasi-great fighting master be easily matched by eggs like them? Seeing these guys kneeling and kowtowing, the little medical fairy frowned at Xian Chen and said, Xian Chen, forget it, you see their heads are bleeding from the knock, so they must have learned a lesson, forget it. Faced with the little medical fairy's begging for mercy, Xian Chen not only ignored it, but raised his hand to press it down. Then the slaves immediately merged with the air completely like Butler Zhao's death. Those ordinary people who had never seen such a scene were so frightened that they started to cry, while those energetic young people all had expressions of excitement. Although they are all ordinary people, they all have the heart to become strong. Facing this situation, their emotions were naturally exaggerated by Xian Chen's behavior. Seeing how this guy of similar age could easily kill these arrogant and domineering bandits, they all felt an urge to become their disciples. Such a bloody scene was naturally extremely nauseating, with some people retching and the air becoming somewhat foul-smelling. The little medical fairy saw that Xian Chen ignored her request, and her handsome face was slightly unnatural. But when he noticed that the young master of the Zhao family was still alive, he frowned at him and said, now all of you are dead. If you still want to live, just run away. We'll see. Mr. Zhao's face turned pale, but it still didn't stop him from spitting. If it hadn't been for his words, maybe Xian Chen would really have left a favor for the little medical fairy, but now that he was being ridiculed like this, Xian Chen immediately raised his hand and shook it. Mr. Zhao has been tragically compressed by the air into a skinny mummy. Call. Xian Chen let out a breath of turbid air, and looked at the villagers with a look of helplessness in his eyes. If these people could possess cultivation, perhaps this situation would not occur. It is because they really have no cultivation, so even if they have no courage, in this case, they are still cattle and sheep that can only be slaughtered. Xian Chen noticed the eyes of those young people, and then said lightly, do you want to be as powerful as me? Think. Master. We all want to be like you. That way, we can protect our families. "Master, please accept us as your disciples." These young people spoke one after another. They were so excited that maybe they really didn't want to be ordinary people. Xianchen let out a breath of turbid air and turned to look at the little medical fairy, as if waiting for her intention. The little medical fairy also nodded to Xianchen very sensibly, as if telling Xianchen something. 3 pairs of human puppets were taken out from the ring. Although they were puppets, their appearance was the same as that of real people. Those people were shocked when they saw that Xianchen could actually take out such a thing from the ring. The crowd was noisy, and Xianchen continued to say to these people, "These 3 are at Douling 5-star, 7-star, and 9-star respectively. At this level, looking at the entire Jiama Empire, it is also a good strength. They will teach you how to practice martial arts, and they will also protect the entire village for you." After Xianchen finished speaking, he took out several fighting skills and auxiliary elixirs needed for practice, and then handed them to one of the young people. He was seen rising into the sky, and then he created a barrier, surrounding all these people inside. I saw him waving his palm, and then the houses exploded immediately. Dust was everywhere, and those people couldn't see what was happening outside. As the dust settled and these people were able to see clearly, they were stunned by the surrounding high-rise buildings. Such a scene was like a god coming to the world, and these simple farmers all bowed their heads to express their gratitude to Xianchen. Returning to the ground, Xianchen smiled at these people and said, "I have remodeled your village so that it can resist foreign enemies and help you defend against surrounding monsters." This supposedly unpopular village has undergone earth-shaking changes a few years later after Xianchen's rectification. As Xianchen's reputation grew, the village expanded by Xianchen gradually developed into an extremely large city in the Jiama Empire. Young master has really brought spring to the earth for your reforms. We can't repay you. We hope that you will allow me to build a temple for you so that future generations can kneel down and worship. A rather old man with a white beard held a hand in his hand. Huahu came to Xianchen. He looked respectful, not showing off because of his age. Xianchen looked at the other person and saw that although he was old, his aura was really something that could not be easily imitated. "I wonder what the old gentleman's position is in the village," Xianchen asked with a frown, as if he thought the other man had been a general in the Jiama Empire when he was young. "Haha, to be honest, the little old man is the mayor of this village." Xianchen has been shocked. A mere village chief can have such momentum. If it were a city, wouldn't it be so powerful? "Haha, yes," Xianchen replied with a smile. The village chief was in a good mood. He held Xianchen's arm and insisted on taking him to his home to sit. However, Xianchen refused immediately. Instead, he walked to the side of the little medical fairy, hugged his waist with great skill, and said to everyone, "I'm sorry, we still have things to deal with, so we left first. Don't be anxious, young master. You're already here, but you still need to have a drink. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing for us people?" The village chief was thoughtful. Knowing that this was a great favor, he still didn't forget to leave a good impression on Xianchen. "Haha, if there is a chance, I will definitely come back and have a look." After Xianchen said that, he stepped on the air and walked towards the distance under the doubtful eyes of everyone. Because the little medical fairy was wearing a skirt, she naturally looked shy and hurriedly covered her thighs, fearing that those standing on the ground would see something. Xianchen frowned, then remembered his carelessness, hurriedly summoned a sword, and chose to fly with the sword. The two stood on the sword, and because they had sword energy as a resistance, there was no air wave. "Where are we going?" The little medical fairy looked at Xianchen happily, as if Xianchen was already an extremely important person in her heart. "Go to Yunlin section," Xianchen replied gently. The little medical fairy's originally pretty face turned a little sad. She knew very well who was on the Yunlin sect's side. "It's just that I don't want to mention it because of my identity." After an unknown amount of time, the two men flying with swords finally arrived at the Yunlin sect's territory. The disciples guarding the mountain immediately rang the bell, and then a group of elders appeared. Yun frowned, looking a little confused at the figure approaching the swordsman. Who is this person? We don't have such a #1 person in the Jiama Empire who can fly with a sword, the middle-aged man standing next to him said with a vigilant look. Yun glanced at the other party with contempt and said lightly, why not? Didn't you already see it in the Tajer Desert? You mean Xianchen? Furukawa's face was extremely ugly. If it weren't for Xianchen's appearance, how could he not get the strange fire? So in Furukawa's heart, Xianchen was not only his enemy, but also his love rival. And he has already investigated Xianchen and found out that the other party is not only a being with the strength of Do Huang, but also an alchemist. How could such a terrifying existence be easily provoked by someone of Furukawa's level? As the sword shadow got closer and closer, Yun suddenly saw something and immediately shouted softly, no. It's not Xianchen. What? Gu he was startled, and immediately followed Yun and swooped out towards the sword shadow. Being able to have a Do Huang and a Do King attack at the same time was enough to show how frightened they were by the terror of the visitor. Staring at this unfamiliar face, Furukawa frowned and said, who is your excellency? Why did you invade my Yunlin sect? Don't you know that this is the domain of Yunlin sect? Haha, who are you? Are you worthy of talking to me? Suinkan's sarcastic tone made Furukawa turn pale, and he immediately retorted, I am Furukawa, the alchemy king of the Gama Empire. Even the top 10 strongest men need me. Give me face, do you really think that my Yunlin sect is easy to mess with? Yun frowned. Since returning from the Tajer Desert, Guhi's character seemed to have changed. Now the Yunlin sect is being thrown out one after another like this. Obviously, it has reached the point where things must be reversed. Haha, what kind of alchemy king? You are just a 6th grade alchemist, do you deserve to call yourself the alchemy king? Bah, how shameless. Suinkan's successive taunts made Furukawa's face darker and darker, but due to his identity, Furukawa had to suppress his anger. Don't be too proud. Guhi exhaled a breath, and then stopped looking at Xianchen, but noticed the girl next to Xianchen. Not only is this girl elegant and generous, she also has an extremely pure appearance, making her a rare beauty. No cultivation, Furukawa was shocked. I can't believe that such a beautiful woman can be such a merciless being. The little medical fairy seemed to notice the other person's gaze, and her face, which was already filled with grudges, looked increasingly melancholy. Get out, Xianchen yelled angrily, and the space power exploded in vain. Although Furukawa is only a fighting king, he is still a 6th grade alchemist qualification after all. So after feeling the distortion in the surrounding space, the look he looked at Xianchen changed from disdain to fear. Then it was too late, and I saw the ancient river falling rapidly downwards like a falling object. Boom! It hit the ground hard, and the elders ran to help it. Seeing Furukawa covered in injuries, the elders were also frightened. What's going on, Master Gu? Why did the good guy suddenly fall off? Could it be that he was attacked in Tajer Desert? The hidden wounds left behind. How is it possible? There are so many fighting kings, and there are also sect leaders. You all should be careful, that guy is not simple, Furukawa said through gritted teeth, and Yun was a little surprised when she noticed this scene, but as the leader of a sect, she naturally could not spare him easily. Otherwise, how can we establish authority within the sect in the future? Yun bit her lips and was about to speak, but then the young man standing on the sword suddenly walked through the air. Every step he took was like stepping on water, causing ripples. What's wrong with you? Have you forgotten me so quickly? Xianchen spoke softly, making Yun retreat in fear. I'm Xianchen, don't you recognize me? Xianchen said happily, not forgetting to stretch out his hands, as if he wanted him to fall into his arms. "Are you Xianchen?" Yun Yun bit her lip. Although the appearance of the person in front of her had changed drastically, her tone and manner were almost the same as those of Xianchen before. But because of his identity and the fact that so many people were watching, he pretended to be angry and replied, "No matter who you are, you have hurt me, the elder of the Yunlin section. If you don't give me a suitable reason, what will happen today, the matter cannot be forgotten." "Elder Xianchen? No way, isn't Elder Xianchen a young man?" "Xianchen? How is this possible?" Furukawa looked up at the sky fiercely. Xianchen in his youth had already made him very afraid. Now we are entering youth. How could a middle-aged man like him continue to provoke him so easily? "Xianchen." On the top of the mountain, a purple-haired girl with twin tails watched the scene with a blank expression. "Is he Xianchen?" Ruan Suanji frowned. Kinglin beside her shook Ruan Suanji's arm and asked curiously, "Sister, is it really brother Xianchen who is back? I remember that brother Xianchen is not a boy." "Haha, what's wrong with you Nur? I'm still the young boy I used to be." Xianchen was a little disappointed. He thought that Yun Yun would rush into his arms excitedly, but in the end, he never expected that this would be the case. The little medical fairy was also a little confused. After all, this situation was the last thing she wanted to see. "Shut up, who is your Yunur?" Although Yun Yun retorted, her face was extremely red. Xianchen was still a young boy in the past, which made her feel somewhat unnatural, but now Xianchen has grown into a real man, which naturally makes Yun Yun extremely happy. If it weren't for the status of the sect leader and the fact that there were so many people watching, Yun Yun might actually have thrown herself into Xianchen's arms like a child based on how much she liked Xianchen. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 190. Are you really Xianchen? Yun Yun frowned and asked, looking at the strange young man in front of her. She really couldn't understand what the other person had gone through to become like this. The same people had the same expression. After all, for them, it was too incredible that a boy could turn into a young man in such a short period of time. Xianchen smiled and said nothing, leaned close to Yun Yun, and said with an affectionate expression, "Is it possible to find a second Xianchen in this Dochi continent?" "Stop, I don't know exactly what you have been through, but you, Xianchen, are the only one in the entire Jiama Empire who dares to talk to me like this." Yun Yun rolled her eyes at Xianchen helplessly. If she didn't like him so much, how could she do it in front of so many people? Not so much. When Xianchen saw that Yun Yun was talking about this, it was natural that he couldn't continue teasing her. He turned back to the little medical fairy, hugged the little medical fairy's waist, came to Yun Yun, and said softly to Yun Yun, "This is my sister, I hope she can stay in Yunlin sect." "Another sister? How many sisters do you have that you haven't brought back?" When Yun Yun heard that this was his sister, she immediately looked at the little medical fairy. When she saw the slim and graceful little medical fairy, she suddenly felt bad emotions come to mind. Xianchen smiled, and Yun Yun had no choice but to nod in agreement. After the three of them fell from the sky, Nalan Yan ran, and others had already rushed to the top of the mountain and waited silently. Looking at Ruan Suanji, Nalan Yan ran, Qinglin, Xuelan, Xianchen really felt a little embarrassed for a moment. After all, he had not yet thought about how to arrange the arrangement of so many women. The current plan was to temporarily keep them all in Yunlin sect. "Are you going to attend the Alchemist Conference in the near future?" "You know, that conference is a very important event for all alchemists." Ever since Yun Yun learned that Xianchen was also an alchemist, her affection for him had grown stronger. Although there are many powerful people in Dochi continent, the profession of alchemist is extremely rare. If there can be one more powerful alchemist in Yunlin sect, then it will only be better for the entire Yunlin sect. Xian Chen frowned and hesitated for a moment before replying, participating in that kind of conference is nothing unusual for me, but if you want to see me attend, I can give it a try. Go give it a try. Everyone was silent, but Nalan Yanran walked up to Xian Chen and looked at Xian Chen with a look of resentment, making Xian Chen feel a little embarrassed. Although no one of these women said anything openly, secretly they all knew very well that Nalan Yanran was Xian Chen's legitimate girlfriend. "You, who is this?" Nalan Yanran wanted to say something, but seeing Xian Chen's appearance change, she felt a little uncomfortable for a moment. A smile appeared on Suankin's face, and he smiled at Nalan Yanran and said, "She is my sister." "Another sister? How many good sisters do you have?" Nalan Yanran's mouth showed bitterness. Ever since Xian Chen's strength increased greatly, she could not see through Xian Chen more and more. "Don't worry Yanran, this is my last sister." Xian Chen replied decisively. Nalan Yanran smiled bitterly and continued to ask, "The last sister, what about my wife?" "I." Xian Chen was speechless for a moment, facing Nalan Yanran's deep soul inquiry, but he had no response. Seeing Xian Chen, who was a little unnatural, Nalan Yanran turned to face the women and said lightly, "You all listen to me, no matter who you are, you must come first and arrive first." Yun Yun frowned. Although Nalan Yanran didn't say it to her, she always felt that the other party was warning her. Of course, the faces of the other people were naturally a little unnatural. After all, for everyone, they all want to be Xian Chen's only woman. But no matter what, there was only one Xian Chen, so they could only think about it silently. Not wanting the situation to develop in a bad direction, Xian Chen let out a breath of turbid air and then continued to say to Yun Yun, "I'm sorry to trouble you." "You have the nerve to know the trouble." Yun Yun looked at Xian Chen in disbelief, as if Xian Chen could say such words, which surprised her. "But the deal is done, and there is nothing to say now. With so many women, Xian Chen can't just let these people leave him for no reason." Without saying any more words, Xian Chen rose into the sky, took one last look at them, and then gradually disappeared from their sight. After leaving Yunlin sect, Xian Chen finally chose to go to Canaan College. Ganon Academy is a powerful force located in the middle of the three empires. It is precisely because of this that it has been able to attract a large number of young talents to join. Someday. Located at Canaan College, on the top of the lush back hill. The girl wearing a light green skirt and robe stood slim and graceful. Xiaoman's waist was lightly tied with a purple belt, which outlined his waist in an extremely attractive way. The girl stood with her hands behind her hands, her slender figure against the faint white mist surrounding her, like a green lotus blooming in the world of mortals. "Ling Ying, what do you think brother Xian Chen is doing now?" The girl lightly opened her red lips and asked the young man in black robe beside her. The young man in black robe was silent for a moment, hesitated for a moment, and then replied, Mr. Xian Chen is quite powerful. He must be traveling around the world now." "Are you traveling around the country?" Suna's brows trembled slightly, thinking that half a year had passed since Xian Chen left. She remembered the boy he was before, but it really surprised her. A young Do Huang, probably his own father, wouldn't refuse, right? After such a long time, I wonder how he is doing now. Suna was emotionally depressed. Since his departure, her sky was no longer blue. "Oh, why bother?" Miss Ling Ying shook her head helplessly, and could only silently protect her from being bullied by others. Looking at this extremely luxurious school, a smile appeared on Xian Chen's lips, and then he landed smoothly downwards. Just as Xian Chen landed, two figures suddenly appeared next to Xian Chen. "Who? How dare you break into our Canaan Academy?" This sinister voice reached Xian Chen's ears. Xian Chen frowned and said nothing, and another voice also sounded. "If you can control the air, you must be pretty strong. But it's really surprising that you can appear here." Xian Chen glanced at the two of them, and found that one was dressed in black and the other in white, and then he smiled and said, "Don't be nervous, you two. I am not your enemy. I just came to Canaan College to seek a position." "Seeking a position? Haha, we are really flattered that you have such ability to seek a position in our Canaan College," the young man dressed in black said with a smile. Xian Chen continued to be silent, but at this moment, the man dressed in white robe touched the other party's shoulder, as if to remind him something. "If you two can allow me to stay in Jianan Academy, I am willing to give you a heavy gift," Xian Chen said and took out two swords. Looking at the two swords suspended in mid-air, the eyes of the black and white men also changed slightly. The white-robed man frowned and asked, "What is your purpose? Our Canaan College didn't just join. If there is no suitable reason, we cannot agree." Seeing their explanation like this, Xian Chen had an idea and continued, "You two have misunderstood. I, Xianyun Yehi, just want to find a job. If you two are willing to help, Xian Chen will definitely thank you very much." "Xian Chen? You said you are Xian Chen." The man in black robe looked at Xian Chen as if he had discovered a treasure, and his eyes were no longer so strange. "Do you two know about me?" Xian Chen saw that they knew his reputation and stopped fooling him. "Haha, who doesn't know Xian Chen? To be able to become a Do Huang at such a young age, haha, looking at the entire Jiama Empire, you are also the first, but didn't you say you are a young man? How can you be a young man?" the young man in black robe continued to ask. Xian Chen saw that the other party was interested in him, so he took out the good wine, opened it, and handed it to the other party. Seeing that the two of them did not accept it, he opened a bottle and drank by himself. "To be honest, my relative is at Canaan College. I promised her that I would come see her when the time comes," Xian Chen explained cheerfully. The man in white robe looked Xian Chen up and down, took the wine bottle and drank a few sips. He bluntly said that the wine was good, and then continued, "That girl Ruolin has already told the higher UPS about you. We didn't believe it at first, but now that we see you, you are really a treasure. As for joining Canaan Academy, we have your student file here. It's just that your age and strength are obviously not suitable for the status of a student. How about this? How about I personally help you apply for the status of an elder of the Sutra Pavilion later?" The young man in white robe was talking while drinking. It was obvious that he respected Xian Chen because of his strength. Xian Chen nodded and was a little surprised to find that although the two men were young men, their cultivation levels were both high and not low. Seeing Xian Chen's expression, the young man in black robe pretended to be nothing and joked, "Don't doubt our age. We have taken the Guyan Dan, so even if it is 100 years from now, we will still look like this. Besides, you don't, is it the same?" "Well." Xian Chen scratched his head in embarrassment. Although he wanted to refute, what the other party said was not unreasonable. Facts have proved that it is indeed what the other party said. If he hadn't relied on the system, perhaps he would have been an ordinary person in this life. Now that Xiao Yan is completely useless, naturally there is nothing to worry about. What's more, according to the current situation, what he needs most is to make a decision with Xiao Suner, otherwise, it will inevitably leave a regret. The three of them stood at the door drinking, attracting the attention of many people. Perhaps it is because the identities of the two elders in Canaan College are so special that they will inevitably frighten the disciples. Although many people were confused about this young man who suddenly appeared, seeing the three of them talking and laughing, they didn't have too much suspicion. Following Elder Bai's arrangements, Xian Chen also had an identity in Canaan College. "I received the unique elder identity plate of the Tibetan Scripture Pavilion, so I wore it on my chest. After all, Elder Black and White wanted to keep the Sutra Pavilion, so he didn't go shopping with Xian Chen." Along the way, looking at the young and energetic students, Xian Chen immediately walked up to a female disciple and asked her gently, "This student, do you know which class Xiao Suner is in?" Well. The female student was frightened for a moment, but after seeing Xian Chen's identity plate, he immediately bowed respectfully. Replying to the elders, Xiao Suner and I are in the same college. Oh, can you please lead the way? I have something to talk to her about. Xian Chen smiled broadly. The female student, with a blushing face, led Xian Chen to her school in a panic. Looking at the magnificent school, Xian Chen followed her and walked in. Although the school is often self-study, there are also tutors in the class. A tutor who was reviewing the results lowered her head to do so when a female student suddenly spoke hurriedly to her. Teacher Ruolin, the elder of the Tibetan Scripture Pavilion, is looking for Xiao Suner. The elders of the Sutra Pavilion are looking for Xiao Suner. Instructor Ruolin was obviously confused. She raised her head and looked at the young man behind the student, feeling a little confused. After all, Instructor Ruolin is also the instructor of Canaan College, so she is naturally very familiar with the elders in the Sutra Pavilion. Looking at the stranger in front of him, Instructor Ruolin asked suspiciously, "Are you the elder of the Sutra Pavilion? Didn't the two elders, black and white, say you don't need help from others? Why are you suddenly recruiting people again?" Haha, Teacher Ruolin doesn't recognize me so soon. However, Xian Chen replied cheerfully, which made Teacher Ruolin very hard to guard against. "Do you know me? Wait, it seems we don't know each other, right? You're not pretending, are you?" Tutor Ruolin said awkwardly, but Xian Chen said lightly, "Teacher Ruolin, don't be nervous, I'm Xian Dust." "Are you Xian Chen? Don't lie to me, I've seen Xian Chen before. He can't look like you." Instructor Ruolin looked at Xian Chen even more suspiciously. If it weren't for the special production of the nameplate of the Sutra Pavilion, she would really suspect that the guy in front of her was an imposter. Seeing that the other party didn't believe him, Xian Chen was silent for a moment, then took a letter and handed it to the other party's table. Looking at the handwriting on the letter and the envelope that had not yet been opened, Instructor Ruolin opened it suspiciously. When he discovered that the handwriting of the content was actually the handwriting of Elder Bai Lai, he looked at Xian Chen with even more surprise. The strength of someone who can be personally recommended by Elder Bailey is absolutely unimaginable. "Ignoring whether we know each other, are you okay?" Teacher Ruolin took a deep breath and asked Xian Chen with a frown. Seeing that the other party finally asked about the topic, he then deliberately approached the other party. Looking at the crimson-faced Instructor Ruolin, Xian Chen said with a bad smile, "Instructor Ruolin, do you still remember the day when we said goodbye to Xiao Mansion?" Xian Chen's mouth curved slightly, but his pair of dark eyes exuded a strange brilliance. Teacher Ruolin stepped back in panic, looking at the strange young man in front of her, and then thinking about being desecrated by Xian Chen in Xiao Mansion that day. Her whole body felt bad instantly. "You are Xian Chen. How is this possible? Aren't you a young man?" Teacher Ruolin asked in shock. Xian Chen happily explained, "Teacher Ruolin doesn't have to be like this. This world is full of mysteries, which makes it interesting, right? Since it is a class, there must be students. Those students have never seen Teacher Ruolin like this." Naturally, everyone was talking about it, and even the female student who was leading the way had a very exciting expression at this moment. Instructor Ruolin's delicate body was trembling. How dare she continue to look at each other?